Chapter 3375. Slaughter. When Zhuowen unleashed his power and killed an early-stage Transcendence Master, Corpse Yin Huang and the other Almighties had arrived. Their eyes were bloodshot, and they couldn't wait to kill Zhuowen. But soon, they sensed the terrifying murderous aura. Heavens! Are these 3 Transcendence killing arrays? When did this guy set them up? Finally, when someone discovered the exceptional killing formation around them, they cried out in alarm, feeling that this was inconceivable. The killing energy formed by the combination of the 3 killing arrays was too terrifying. 7 or 8 ordinary early-stage Transcendence Masters were instantly annihilated by the killing energy. The other Transcendence Masters were suppressed by the killing energy. Their bodies trembled, and their eyes were filled with fear. The moment the 3 supreme killing formations were activated, Zhuowen made his move. He suddenly bent his body, and his body emitted cracking sounds as he shot out, instantly arriving beside an early-stage Transcendence Master. Rumble! He smashed out with a fist. It was like a blazing sun that erupted, dazzling and resplendent. Suppressed by the killing arrays, the early-stage Transcendence Master's body burst into a bloody mist. He was extremely weak and panting heavily. He didn't have much strength to resist at all before he was smashed into a bloody mist by Zhuowen's punch. After killing the early-stage Transcendence Master, Zhuowen's feet moved like the wind. He moved like a ghost in the killing arrays, and his speed was as fast as lightning. One early-stage Transcendence Master after another was killed by him. Miserable screams rang out in the array. When Zhuowen killed the last early-stage Transcendence Master, there were only 20 Transcendence Masters left in the array. Most of them were mid-stage Transcendence Masters or above. Corpse Yin Huang and the other 3 late-stage Empyrean lords narrowed their eyes as they stared at the figure bathed in the rain of blood from the Empyrean lords. Their hearts couldn't help but tremble. Within the 3 peerless killing formations, they were ruthlessly suppressed. Although it was not to the extent of being unable to move an inch, their movements within the killing array were indeed greatly affected. They simply could not keep up with Zhuowen's pace, and could only allow Zhuowen to slaughter to his heart's content. Whoosh! Zhuowen attacked once more. This time, his target was the leader of one of the major clans. He was a mid-Heavenspan lord, and was much stronger than an early Heavenspan lord. The Patriarch's expression changed slightly, but he still braced himself and charged forward, throwing a punch at Zhuowen. Zhuowen sneered. His right hand formed a palm and blasted out as well. The Patriarch spat out a mouthful of blood and crashed to the ground. Zhuowen stood in the air, without moving. He condensed a snow-white light blade in his hand and threw it out. It pierced through the Patriarch's chest and nailed him to the ground, making him unable to move. He could only lie on the ground, deader than dead. Everyone, we can't fight on our own. We have to work together. Otherwise, we will be defeated one by this kid. Suddenly, the Yang-tongued Union, who was not far away, spoke. There were a total of 5 experts from the Sorcerer tribe. 4 of them were experts at the early stage of the Sky-reaching Master Realm, but they had already been killed by Zhuowen. Now, there was only 1 expert at the middle stage of the Sky-reaching Master Realm left. The Yang-tongued Union was terrified when he saw that many of his companions had been killed. He knew that he had to work together to take down this kid. Moreover, they were all trapped by the killing array, and their strength was suppressed too much. If they did not work together, they would all be finished. The Yang-tongued Union, you are jumping very high. Since you spoke first, I will attack you first. Zhuowen looked coldly at the Yang-tongued Union. He stomped his right foot, and the space around him suddenly distorted. He disappeared from where he was and instantly appeared in front of the Yang-tongued Union. He clenched his right hand into a fist which emitted a jade-like light. Zhuowen raised the power of his Pangu's sacred body to the extreme. It had to be said that after Zhuowen's Pangu's sacred body was promoted, it had almost undergone a transformation. Its level of power had reached another level, which was very terrifying. The Yang-tongued Union tried their best to resist this attack, but it was still useless. The Yang-tongued Union's hands were broken, and his chest was penetrated. Blood spurted out, and it was very sad. Zhuowen's eyes were cold. He pressed his left hand on the Yang-tongued Union's head, and his right hand tore fiercely. The Yang-tongued Union's entire body collapsed and exploded into clouds of blood mist. He was completely dead. The moment the Yang-tongued Union died, many experts trapped in the killing array were shocked. The Yang-tongued Union was an expert of the sorcerer tribe with a powerful bloodline. His strength was stronger than an ordinary mid-heavenspan lord, but he was killed so easily. How terrifying was Long Wen's strength! Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Another 4 mid-heavenspan lords rushed over, wanting to kill Zhuowen. Zhuowen sneered, took out the Yama ghost picture, opened the second layer, and 4 evil spirits rushed out. Howl, 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 howl. The 4 evil spirits rushed out like crazy, blocking the 4 mid-heavenspan lords and suppressing them. Zhuowen's body was surrounded by a jade-like color. While the 4 evil spirits were entangled, he condensed 4 sky-splitting blades and threw them out, piercing through the 4 experts and reducing their combat strength. At the same time, Zhuowen strengthened the power of the 3 killing arrays. The surrounding killing intent became more and more terrifying, and the experts trapped in the arrays were even more difficult to move. The 4 mid-heavenspan lords were pierced through by the sky-splitting blades and lost most of their combat strength. In the end, they were torn to pieces and devoured by the 4 evil spirits. Long One, die for me. The veins on Sher Inzhou's forehead bulged. The 5 late heavenspan lords, led by him, channeled all their energy and rushed toward Zhuowen. Zhuowen didn't give them the chance. He was still wary of these 5 people. After all, they were all late heavenspan lords. Even if Zhuowen's Pangu's sacred body had advanced to 8 stars and his strength had undergone a tremendous transformation, he could at most suppress a late heavenspan lord, but he was still far from being able to kill them. Now, there were 5 late heavenspan lords in front of him. Although they were suppressed by the killing arrays and couldn't use their full strength, they were still very difficult for Zhuowen to deal with when they joined forces. Therefore, Zhuowen planned to wait until the other powerhouses in the killing formation were annihilated before finally battling with these 5 people. Now is not the time to fight you. I'll let the 5 of you live a little longer. Zhuowen swept out like a loach, distancing himself from the 5. The 5 of them were helpless. They were suppressed too badly by the killing arrays, and their speed was far slower than Zhuowen's. Moreover, Zhuowen's speed was not slower than theirs. Under such circumstances, it would be strange if they could catch up with Zhuowen. Chapter 3376. The 5 clan leaders, when Zhuowen tore apart the last Tongtian master with his bare hands, he turned around and looked at the corpse in swamp not far away. He grinned and said, "Now it's your turn." At that moment, all the foreign race experts who were watching this scene were shocked. They looked at the figure bathed in the rain of blood of the Grandmaster Realm cultivators and the mountainous pile of corpses under his feet. Everyone felt incredulous. The mountain of corpses were not ordinary corpses. They were all Tongtian masters. And these Tongtian masters were all killed by one person. This world was too crazy. This kind of thing was happening right in front of their eyes. The Moon Wolf clan Giant Turtle Clan, and other clan leaders who did not participate in the encirclement were dumbfounded when they saw this scene. At the same time, they heaved a sigh of relief in their hearts. They were glad that they did not participate in the encirclement. Otherwise, they doubted whether they would have survived this battle. Longwen is too scary. You are not to provoke him in the future. Otherwise, you will bring disaster to our clan. The Moonwolf clan leader, Yi Taihe, said to Tu Qian and Qian Ping beside him. Tu Qian and Qian Ping were already stunned. They nodded subconsciously. Even without Yi Taihe's reminder, they did not dare to provoke Longwen. Didn't they see how this guy had killed dozens of heavenly masters earlier on? Those were all existences at the level of the clan leaders of the various major races, and were much stronger than them. Not only the Moonwolf clan, but the clan leaders of the Nine-Tailed Fox clan, Giant Turtle clan, and other clans also quickly ordered their subordinates to remember Longwen's appearance and not to provoke him in the future. Wu Wuxian was so angry that she clenched the scepter in her hand tightly. She stared at the scene that was happening in the 3 killing formations, especially when she saw Zhuowen crush the Yangjiu master to death. She was fuming with anger. However, Wu Wuxian did not lose her composure. Instead, she began to deduce, trying to break the 3 killing formations. What made her vexed was that the combination of these 3 peerless killing formations was truly seamless. It was impossible for her to crack it in a short period of time. She was a little anxious in her heart. At the same time, she became more and more fearful of Longwen. This fellow's level in the array Dao was actually so strong that he could actually set up such a terrifying chain-killing array. It was truly beyond her expectations. This is truly inconceivable. To think that Longwen would be able to kill so many omnipotent beings single-handedly. Is that fella truly a genius from some small race? Not to mention the geniuses of the small races, even the geniuses of the large races, or even the geniuses of the super large races like the 10 great races, are far from being able to do what Longwen did. Motherf asterisk Kerr. He killed so many omnipotent experts in a row. He's going to poke a hole in the sky. Many outsider experts in Sorcerer God City were dumbfounded. They looked at Zhuowen with awe and fear. At this moment, only the clan leader of the Corpse School clan, Shi Yinzhou, the clan leader of the Phoenix people, Feng Lilua, the clan leader of the Black Tiger clan, Hu Sha, the clan leader of the Dragon clan, Zonglong, and the clan leader of the Merman clan, Yongshi, were left inside the peerless killing formation. The 5 of them were all late-stage omnipotent beings. In the primitive celestial realm, they were all peerless experts who could look down on a region. Zhuowen glanced at Feng Lilua of the Phoenix people. What surprised him was that among the Phoenix people, only Feng Lilua had participated in the encirclement. However, Grand Elder Mu Yu and Third Elder and Yen were not among them. He had not even seen the 2 of them in Sorcerer God City. This made Zhuowen's expression turn ugly. Grand Elder Mu Yu and Third Elder and Yen were the culprits who knew about Mu Qinshue's whereabouts. He had to capture the 2 of them and interrogate them about Mu Qinshue's whereabouts. However, he did not expect that Grand Elder Mu Yu and Third Elder and Yen were not in Sorcerer God City. He had guessed that the 2 of them might have been sent back to the Phoenix people by Feng Lilua. After all, the Phoenix people had just been heavily injured by him. They were still in the ascendant and needed someone to organize and rebuild. Feng Lilua had placed all her attention on him. She wanted to scheme against him, so she stayed behind to deal with him. As for the Grand Elder and Third Elder, they were naturally sent back to their sect to clean up after him. The 4 of you, this kid must have a big secret. If we continue to let him stay, there will be endless trouble in the future. Corpse Yin Marsh's eyes were gloomy as he reminded the other four in a low voice. Brother Inmarsh is right. This kid's progress is too fast. We have all offended him. With his personality, I'm afraid he will cause trouble for our clan. If we don't get rid of him now, it will be even more difficult in the future. We might even suffer a calamity. Everyone, if you have any trump cards, don't hide them. Take them out and take him down. Feng Lilua said. The other three nodded. They agreed with Corpse Inmarsh and Feng Lilua. The dragon rune must be removed. Otherwise, it would be a great disaster for them. The five of them all took out their own natal divine artifacts. Corpse Yinmarsh's natal divine artifact was a crystal skull. There was a crack between the skull's eyebrows. A slender red crystal was embedded in the crack. It looked like a third eye. It was very strange. Feng Lilua took out a fan that burned with flames. The fan's blades were made of burning fire plume. It gave off a vast aura. The Dragon Clan's patriarch, Zonglong, revealed his half-dragon, half-human form. A sharp golden armor that emitted golden light appeared on his body. It was dazzling and extraordinary. The Black Tiger Clan's patriarch, Husha, held a large saber in his hand. On the wide surface of the saber, there was a vivid tiger pattern. Moreover, the saber emitted a sound like a tiger roaring in the forest. It was very spiritual. As for the Merfolk Clan's patriarch, Yongshi, his natal divine artifact was a huge hammer. However, there were various patterns on the hammer's surface. It had an extraordinary aura. The natal divine artifacts of the five of them were all extraordinary. They were all heaven-connecting divine artifacts. Furthermore, they were all extraordinary and extremely powerful. Zhuowen brought the four evil spirits with him. Looking at the five of them, his gaze became rather stern. Go! Corpse Inmarsh roared furiously. He took a step forward and took out the crystal skull. A vast amount of Yin Qi surged over like a tide, enveloping Zhuowen. The moment Zhuowen came in contact with the Yin Qi, he actually felt dizzy. Many illusions appeared before his eyes. Shi Yan knew that the crystal skulls in the Corpse Yin Swamp were designed to deal with the God Soul, because many phantoms of skulls had appeared in his God Soul space. They were eating the energy of his God Soul, trying to destroy it. The other four followed closely behind. They all took out their natal divine artifacts. However, the four evil spirits by Zhuowen's side received Zhuowen's orders. They charged out recklessly and blocked the four of them. However, the four evil spirits were only at the mid-heaven connecting divine artifact after all. Although Feng Lilua and the others had become much weaker due to the killing formation, they were still able to firmly suppress the four evil spirits. Most likely, it wouldn't be long before the four evil spirits were defeated or even killed. Ha! You've fallen into my illusions of infinite fear. Longwen, I won't let you die so easily. Chapter 33, 77.1 Against Forbang. The moment Corpse Yinmarsh's right hand clawed at Zhuowen, his entire body trembled. He suddenly felt an ominous premonition that made him break out in cold sweat. Then he looked up at Zhuowen. He saw that the dullness in Zhuowen's eyes had long disappeared and was replaced by a cold clarity. Moreover, a golden light suddenly shot out from between Zhuowen's eyebrows. The golden light took the shape of a sword and pierced through the air, instantly drilling into the depths of Corpse Inmarsh's sea of consciousness. Ah! Corpse Inmarsh screamed and covered his head with both hands. He quickly retreated. His divine soul had been turned upside down by the sword-shaped golden light, and he was in so much pain that he wished he was dead. The sword-shaped golden light was the divine soul sword essence that Zhuowen had just learned. It was extremely powerful. With his current strength, the divine soul sword essence was enough to cause great damage to an expert in the late stage of sky-reaching master. After all, he had absorbed the 3 venomous insects. Not only had he evolved his Panga sacred body, but he had also perfected the Panga banner in his divine soul. The Panga banner had also fed back to his divine soul, causing Zhuowen's divine soul to undergo another transformation. The transformation of his divine soul naturally caused the divine soul sword essence that Zhuowen had learned to become even more terrifying and powerful. When Corpse Yinmarsh's divine soul was severely injured and he kept retreating, Zhuowen had already rushed out like lightning and arrived in front of Corpse Yinmarsh. He snatched the crystal skull and spiritual ring from Corpse Yinmarsh's hand and punched Corpse Yinmarsh's chest with his right fist. Corpse Yinmarsh was trying his best to resist the injury to his divine soul, so he had no time to resist Zhuowen's attack. He was hit hard and spat out a mouthful of blood. He fell from the sky like a withered butterfly and hit the ground hard. The moment Corpse Yinmarsh fell to the ground, Zhuowen condensed 5 sky-splitting blades and shot them out. 4 of the sky-splitting blades pierced Corpse Yinchi's limbs, while the last one pierced Corpse Yinchi's forehead and exploded. Corpse Yinchi let out a blood-curdling scream as his head exploded. Just like that, he was killed. When Corpse Yinmarsh was killed, Feng Liluo, Husha, Zonglong, and Yongshi had finished dealing with the 4 demons. They turned Yama Ghost Translation, the translation. Translation, 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 translation. Translation, Yinmarsh translation, translation. When the 4 of them planned to chase after Longwen again, they saw the scene of Corpse Yin Swamp being forcefully killed. They were all stunned and felt that it was too inconceivable. Translation, 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 U4. Wen's entire body was sparkling and translucent, as if he was forged from pure jade. The aura that erupted from his body was extremely terrifying. It seemed as if it could tear apart this part of the world. After he finished saying those words, he took a step into the air and brought forth a terrifying wave of air. He continued to rush toward Feng, Liluo, and the others. Corpse Yinchi was the strongest of the 5, a late-stage heavenly master. He was also the existence that Zhuowen feared the most. Therefore, he had used his soul and sword intent as his trump card from the very beginning. After all, he had only condensed 2 soul sword essences in his soul. Now that he had used one, if he wanted to condense another one, he would have to spend a lot of energy and effort. After dealing with the Corpse Yinmarsh, Zhuowen could finally let go of the knot in his heart. He was confident that he could fight against the 4 of them by himself. Arrogant, he actually wants to fight 1 against 4, like an egg striking a stone. Feng Liluo was the first to react. She knew that the 4 of them had to work together. Otherwise, it was impossible for them to be Longwen's opponent. At the same time, Feng Liluo began to regret targeting Longwen. He had even destroyed the Corpse Yin Swamp. His potential and strength were too terrifying. If he had not offended Longwen, perhaps he would not have ended up like this. However, Feng Liluo also knew that he and Longwen would not rest until one of them was dead. If Longwen did not die, he would die. Thinking up to there, Feng Liluo suddenly summoned the flaming fan in her hand. Terrifying flames surged out, forming an enormous figure of a flaming phoenix that seemed to blot out the sky. The merfolk patriarch, Yongshi, wielded a huge hammer. Violent lightning energy surged on the surface of the hammer. He quickly appeared 100 meters behind Zhuowen. With a swing of the hammer, lightning filled the air and splashed everywhere. It seemed to have turned into a terrifying lightning storm. At the same time that Feng Liluo and Yongshi used their natal god artifacts to attack Zhuowen from afar, the patriarch of the dragon clan. Zonglong charged towards Zhuowen in his half-dragon, half-human form. He was clad in golden armor that shone with golden light. He was like a god clad in golden armor that had descended. He planned to engage in a melee with Zhuowen. Bang! 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 The two of them instantly clashed. Terrifying auras burst out. In just a few breaths, they had exchanged dozens of blows. The resulting shock waves broke through the surrounding space and broke the rules. Zhuowen let out a low roar and suddenly smashed a fist into Zonglong's chest. Zonglong let out a muffled groan and flew out. The defensive power of his golden armor was just too shocking. Zhuowen's punch had only injured him slightly. At this moment, Feng Liluo and Yong Shi's attacks had already arrived before Zhuowen. The lightning storm and the flaming phoenix intertwined, forming a terrifying lightning and fire energy. The entire space was stirred up, tearing apart countless black holes. The moment Zhuowen saw the flaming phoenix and the lightning storm attacking from both sides, he summoned Xiao He from his great world. "Kid, why did you summon me?" Xiao He asked curiously as soon as she appeared. "I'm going to give you a good fortune. Go and absorb all the lightning and fire energy around here." Zhuowen used the profound creation mysterious light to resist the terrifying lightning and fire energy around him. He pointed at the surroundings and said to Xiao He, F***CK, "Kid, are you trying to trick me? Such a powerful lightning and fire energy is at least the full force attack of a master of heaven's late-stage expert. Why the hell are you asking me to absorb it?" Xiao He screamed. Zhuowen ignored Xiao He's screams and kicked him out. He had given this guy so many resources. This guy had already advanced to the Master of Heaven's late stage. He might have even reached the middle stage of the Master of Heaven's late stage. In addition, the Thunderfire Sword was a divine weapon born from the lightning and fire. It had a natural restraint against the lightning and fire energy. The surrounding lightning and fire energy was not a problem for this guy at all. "Brat, you're a bastard. You're pushing me into a pit of fire." Xiao He cursed. However, after this guy rushed into the lightning and fire energy, his body was very honest. He began to absorb the lightning and fire energy crazily. Zhuowen silently looked at Xiao He absorbing the lightning and fire energy. After confirming that this guy was indeed fine, he waved his right hand and tore the lightning and fire energy barrier around him. "Dai Long One!" The moment Zhuowen tore the lightning and fire barrier apart and came out, a terrifying saber chi came straight at him and blasted his body. Zhuowen snorted coldly and suddenly threw a punch, colliding with Tiger Shah's broadsword. Clang! The sound of metal clashing could be heard. Tiger Shah looked at Zhuowen's fist in disbelief as it blocked his saber. Zhuowen's fist was not damaged at all. Instead, it was like a beautiful jade, crystal clear and flawless. His attack did not leave any mark on the fist at all. Chapter 3378. Death of Tiger Shah spat out blood and flew backward. The broadsword in his hand almost slipped out of his hand and was taken into Zhuowen's macro world. At this moment, Tiger Shah was in great pain. Zhuowen's Panga sacred body was a combination of 8 types of venomous insects. The power of 8 different attributes was wreaking havoc in his body, causing him great pain. He was barely able to suppress it. Feng Liluo and Yong Shi, who were standing not far away, looked gloomy. Their joint attack did not cause too much damage to Yi Futian. They were shocked and in a bad mood. However, the two of them were not discouraged. They continued to wave the divine weapons in their hands. The energy of thunder and fire poured out again and swept towards Zhuowen. Zhuowen did not want to play with the two of them. He had to kill one of them first. It was not a good thing to waste time with the four of them. Zhuo Wen's target was Tiger Killer. Tiger Sha was the weakest among the four of them. His divine weapon was taken away, and he had lost more than half of his combat power. He was the least threat to Yi Futian. Thinking of this, Zhuo disappeared from where he was. Everywhere he passed, the space collapsed. He was heading straight for Tiger Sha. Stay here. Zonglong's body was glowing with golden light. He stopped Zhuo halfway and swung his huge dragon tail at Zhuo. The wind was blowing and the light was boundless. Do you really think I can't cut off your dragon tail? Zhuo's eyes were cold. At the same time, he used the profound meaning, death of heaven and earth, and the sky-splitting blade. A huge light blade was condensed in his hands. The surface of the light blade was filled with the destructive aura of death of heaven and earth, making the power of the light blade reach a terrifying level. Zhuo slashed out fiercely. The saber chi was earth-shattering. Zonglong's huge dragon tail had just arrived in front of Zhuo when it met the terrifying light blade. Puchi, Zonglong's huge dragon rune, was cut off by the light blade. Golden blood spilled all over the sky like golden rain. Zonglong screamed. His dragon tail was cut off. His body, which was suspended in the air, lost its balance and immediately fell down. Zhuo would not let Zonglong go. He threw the light blade with the destructive aura in his hand. The light blade was pointed at Zonglong's chest. Bang! What made Zhuo's the fact that the death of heaven and earth was death of heaven and earth was the fact that the light blade with the death of heaven and earth could not penetrate Zonglong's golden armor. Zonglong's was come. Translation. Translation Zong. Translation. Zhuo had exerted the power of the 8-star Pangu's sacred body to the extreme, bearing the injuries caused by the full-strength attacks of the two masters at the late stage of the sky-reaching realm. Zhuo rushed to Tiger Sha. Tiger Sha kept retreating until he reached the edge of the killing formation. While suppressing the injuries on his body, he also had to resist the killing energy of the killing formation around him. He was a little tired. Now that he saw Zhuo coming, he naturally did not dare to face him alone. You can't escape. You will die here today. The Corpsine Swamp will be your fate. Zhuo's eyes were full of killing intent. He arrived in front of Tiger Sha and punched him mercilessly. He used the power of the death of heaven and earth in this punch. The destructive aura hit Tiger Sha in the face, making him fearful. Tiger Sha circulated all the energy in his body and pushed out with both hands. He wanted to completely block Zhuo's attack. Crack! Unfortunately, Tiger Sha, who was seriously injured, was nothing in front of Zhuo. His hands were crushed by Zhuo's punch. Zhuo's fist was like a rainbow that pierced through the sun. It penetrated Tiger Sha's chest and exploded. Tiger Sha's chest was separated. Long One, you're dead. Feng Liluo and Yongshi saw that Tiger Sha was almost killed. They were enraged and attacked with all their strength again. The thunderstorm and the flaming phoenix intertwined again. This time, the attack was even more terrifying and shocking. The lightning and fire energy it produced formed terrifying whirlpools in the air one after another. They were distributed in every part of the space. Even the 3 chains of supreme killing formations in the surroundings were shaken by this terrifying energy. Zhuo's face slightly changed. He suddenly grabbed the head of Tiger Sha, who only had half of his body left, and threw him out. Tiger Sha was miserably thrown into the terrifying thunderfire energy by Zhuo. Tiger Sha didn't last long before he was turned to dust by the terrifying thunderfire energy. Xiaohei, come and help me block it. The moment Zhuo threw Tiger Sha, he waved his right sleeve and summoned Xiaohei, who had just finished absorbing the thunderbolt and fire energy back, he told Xiao He to throw him into the thunderbolt and fire energy that was about to descend. "Damn it, kid, you're going to make me miserable today, aren't you?" Xiao He kept cursing as he was thrown into the thunderbolt and fire energy by Zhuowen. He screamed again and again. Although Xiao He looked miserable, the thunderbolt and fire energy did not destroy him. On the contrary, the thunderbolt and fire sword became more tenacious under the burning of the thunderbolt and fire energy. Its aura also became more and more vast. There were faint signs of a breakthrough. Zhuowen knew that although this guy kept screaming, he must be feeling comfortable. To Xiao He, the thunderbolt and fire energy was nourishment, not a destructive factor. This guy had a cheap mouth. He wanted to be a whore, but still wanted to make a monument to his chastity. After all, Xiao He's thunderbolt and fire sword needed powerful thunderbolt and fire energy to continuously evolve. Feng Liluo and Yongshi were both at the late stage of the sky-piercing realm. The thunderbolt and fire energy they released was of a very high level. To Xiao He, it was the best nourishment. It was very beneficial for its evolution. Zhuowen no longer paid attention to Xiao He, who was still screaming. The space under his feet distorted, and he disappeared from where he was, avoiding the thunderbolt and fire energy that was attacking him. He went straight for Feng Liluo and arrived in front of him in an instant. At that moment, Feng Liluo was controlling the flame fan, constantly urging the flames to attack Zhuowen. However, when he saw Zhuowen appear in front of him, it was as if he had seen a ghost, and he quickly retreated. Unfortunately, Zhuowen was much faster than him. His right hand shot out like lightning. Bang! Feng Liluo was a little panicked. He raised the flame fan, wanting to block Zhuowen's attack. Unfortunately, his strength was not much better than Hu Sha's. Under Zhuowen's attack, the flame fan was directly sent flying. His right hand turned into a long fist and smashed into Feng Liluo's chest like a hot knife through butter. Puchi! Feng Liluo's chest was penetrated. Red blood splashed out, sprinkling in the sky, forming a red rain of blood. It was a miserable and clear scene. Feng Liluo screamed. He burned his essence blood and quickly retreated. Unfortunately, the 3 peerless killing formations at the edge blocked his retreat. He could not retreat at all and could only retreat to the edge of the killing formations. Chapter 3379. Fear bang, bang, bang. Feng Liluo seemed to have gone mad as he kept attacking the edge of the killing formation. However, he found that it was useless. His right fist was bleeding from the energy of the killing formation. A powerful killing aura invaded Feng Liluo's body, causing him to spit out a mouthful of blood. His body was bathed in blood, and he looked extremely miserable. Zhuowen's right foot was in the air as he swooped down proudly. He landed beside Feng Liluo, and his right hand was like lightning as he slammed his palm onto Feng Liluo's body. Puchi! Feng Liluo was in a very miserable state. He spat out a mouthful of blood, and his face was unbelievably pale. His waist arched as he was sent flying. He heavily smashed into the formation behind him, and his internal organs seemed to have been shattered. His body seemed to have been hollowed out as he fell to the ground. Zhuowen waved his right hand, and a powerful energy turned into a rope that tightly bound Feng Liluo. Then he threw him into the great world. He did not immediately kill Feng Liluo. To him, Feng Liluo still had some value. It was too early to kill him now. Boom! The moment he trapped Feng Liluo, a terrifying gust of wind swept past him from behind. The gust of wind swept across the area. Zhuowen turned around and punched out. He saw that the gale behind him was actually the Dragon Clan's patriarch. Zonglong was wearing golden armor, and his right fist was like lightning. As the two fists collided, a terrifying shockwave burst forth. Powerful shockwaves swept out, and Zhong Long let out a muffled groan as he was sent flying by Zhuowen once again, crashing heavily into the ground. Zhuowen looked at Zhong Long's golden armor in surprise. He had to admit that Zhong Long's golden armor was very unusual. The power of his 8-star Pangu's sacred body could not directly injure Zhong Long. Most of the power was absorbed and blocked by the golden armor. The moment Zhong Long fell to the ground, he wanted to immediately jump up. However, Zhuowen was faster than him. He kicked Zhong Long's chest and stomped him to the ground again. Zhong Long roared and struggled. Unfortunately, under Zhuowen's powerful strength, all of his efforts were in vain. "I'll deal with you later. You don't have to rush to your death." After Zhuowen finished speaking, he stomped his right foot again, concentrating all his strength on his right foot. Puchi! Zhong Long spat out a mouthful of blood. His eyes were wide open, as if they were going to pop out. His eyes were bloodshot, and the place where he was lying on the ground cracked open, creating a very deep pit. Of course, this pit was also a human-shaped pit. Zhuowen no longer paid any attention to the heavily injured Zhong Long. He slowly lifted his gaze and looked at Yongshi, the leader of the merfolk race. At this moment, Yongshi held the thunder hammer in his hand and was fighting with the thunder fire sword. Xiao He wasn't satisfied after absorbing the lightning and fire energy. When she saw the thunder hammer in Yongshi's hand, her eyes lit up. Like a bolt of lightning, she pounced at Yongshi and engaged him in battle. Zhuowen was very surprised. Although Xiao He's strength was extraordinary, there was still a gap between him and Yongshi, who was in the late stage of the Master of Heaven Ascension. Why was this guy so eager to fight Yongshi? However, Zhuowen's face darkened when he heard Xiao He's next words. "Old man, your thunder hammer is not bad. If you don't mind, let me have a look." "Old man, what are you doing?" "I'm just borrowing it to have a look. It's not like I'm going to eat it." "Why are you so stingy?" You're really merciless. You actually electrocuted me. But I like it. Continue electrocuting me. It'd be best if you electrocuted me to death." When Zhuowen heard Xiao He's shameless words, he felt embarrassed. This guy really had no filter and dared to say anything. However, although Xiao He wasn't Yongshi's match, he happened to be able to restrain Yongshi's divine weapon. Although he was severely suppressed by Yongshi, it would still be difficult for Yongshi to get rid of Xiao He completely. On the contrary, every time Yongshi blasted out lightning energy, Xiao He would open his mouth and absorb it, turning it into his own energy. Bang! Xiao He was sent flying again, wailing like a ghost and howling like a wolf. Zhuowen rushed over and caught the thunder fire sword in his hand. "Kid, you're finally here. This hammer is really important to me. You must help me get it. I need to nourish my body." Xiao He hurriedly said, "You should go back to the outside world first. You'll get a share of the divine weapon this time." Zhuowen said indifferently. Xiao He revealed a look of joy and hurriedly said, "Then I'll leave it to you. I'll go in first." Zhuowen ignored Xiao He. Instead, he looked at Yongshi, whose eyes were filled with fear. He said indifferently, "Hand over the god artifact in your hand and cripple your own cultivation. That way, you still have a chance to live." Yongshi's eyes narrowed, but he laughed and said, "You want me to hand over the divine weapon and destroy my own cultivation? Longwen, who do you think you are? Do you have the right to talk to me like this? It seems like I'm talking nonsense. In that case, I won't say anything more. Die." Zhuowen shook his head and stomped his right foot. His whole body was crystal clear, and his aura was like a dragon. Yongshi's eyes changed slightly, and the thunder hammer in his hand suddenly blasted out toward Zhuowen's face. Clusters of lightning fell like rain and suddenly dispersed, enveloping Zhuowen in all directions and enveloping Zhuowen. But soon, Yongshi found that the countless thunderbolts from the thunder hammer dissipated the moment they came into contact with Zhuowen's body. They could not cause much damage to Zhuowen at all. Your body, how can it be so strong? Yongshi's eyes narrowed, and he roared. The huge hammer smashed hard on Zhuowen's face. Bang! Zhuowen attacked later than Yongshi. He punched out, and the powerful fist momentum burst out. The hammer wrapped in monstrous thunderbolts was directly smashed away. Yongshi's hands, which were holding the hammer, were directly shaken by the huge force. His huge body could not help but retreat. Boom! Zhuowen's right hand formed a fist, and he stepped in front of Yongshi. The fist momentum burst out with a muffled explosion, and it smashed between Yongshi's eyebrows. Yongshi raised his hands to block the attack. However, under the terrifying power of the Pangu's sacred body, his defense was simply a joke. His arms were blasted into a bloody mist. The fist smashed between his eyebrows and directly blew up his head. Yongshi didn't even have the chance to groan before Zhuowen punched him to death. After Zhuowen slowly put away the thunder hammer, he turned to look at Zonglong, who was struggling to climb out of the pit. At this moment, the golden armor on the surface of Zonglong's body was dim, and the corner of his mouth was bleeding. His aura was very weak. He raised his head and saw the scene of Zhuowen killing Yongshi with one punch. His eyes were full of fear. Only now did he realize that Longwen, who he was dealing with, was simply a monster. They had been besieged by so many experts of the sky-reaching realm, but not only had they not killed him, but they had also let him kill so many of them. In the end, he was the only one left, and he was in a half-dead state. As the patriarch of the Dragon Clan, Zonglong was the top expert of one of the top 10 clans in the untainted heavenly realm. He looked down on the world and all living beings. But now, Zonglong felt a deep chill, and the source of this chill was Longwen. Chapter 3380. Get down. Lord Longwen, I, Zonglong, am willing to surrender. Please spare my life. Please spare my life. Zonglong hurriedly knelt down and begged for mercy. Zhuowen slowly walked in front of Zonglong and looked at the golden armor on Zonglong's body. He didn't attack immediately. Instead, he asked curiously, "Take off your spirit ring and this golden armor. Then break your own arms. If you do that, I will spare your life and not care about the Dragon Clan behind you." Zonglong let out a sigh of relief. Without hesitation, he took off his spirit ring and golden armor and handed them to Zhuowen respectfully. Zhuowen very naturally put Zonglong's spirit ring and golden armor into his great world. He also put away the 3 peerless killing formations around the inn and kicked Zonglong out. After being kicked out, Zonglong was not angry at all. He even cupped his hands and apologized to Zhuowen, then left with his face covered in dirt. Zhuowen no longer paid any attention to Zonglong. He pushed off the ground with his right foot and leaped onto the inn. He lifted his head and looked at High Priest Wu Wuxian, who was hovering in the air nearby. He said in an indifferent voice, "Wu Wuxian, get down here and die." It was a simple sentence, but at this moment, in this place, and in this person, it was extraordinary and solemn. Many of the foreign race experts were stunned. They stared blankly at the figure who had stepped on the bodies of dozens of Divine Master experts and leaped up to the top of the inn. They felt incredulous, terrified, and even a little excited. What a magnificent feat it was to kill so many legendary earthly Divine Masters, all by himself. Such a thing had never happened in the primitive sky domain for countless years, but now it was happening right in front of them. It was a guy named Longwen who had acted it out right in front of them. In particular, the last sentence of Long, Wen's speech to High Priest Wu Wuxian, was like a fuse that completely shocked all the experts of the alien races. He had killed so many experts in the Sorcerer God City. Not only did he not escape, but he also provoked the High Priest Wu Wuxian. He did not take the Sorcerer tribe seriously at all. Long One, you are very bold. Not only did you kill people in the Sorcerer God City, but you also dare to provoke me and the dignity of the Sorcerer tribe. Do you not take the Sorcerer tribe seriously at all? You even want to kill me? Wu Wuxian said coldly, Old witch, I have not liked you for a long time. What you said before was all for your own selfish reasons. You want to catch me and steal my things. You don't even want your face. Why should I be polite with you? Zhuo Wen's eyes were cold, and his words made Wu Wuxian so angry that his lungs were about to explode. What did you? You say, I am an old witch? How dare you? Wu Wuxian roared Wu. God, old witch, he said, if you then get down here and die, don't force me to step on you before you are willing to get down here. Zhuo said rudely. All the foreign experts sucked in a breath of cold air. Longwen really had guts. He had already broken the rules of Shaman God City by killing so many experts. Now, he was even shouting at Wu Wuxian. To be so arrogant in front of the Sorcerer tribe's trump card was a slap to the Sorcerer tribe's face. Many of the foreign race experts knew that Wu Wuxian's strength might not be comparable to Corpse Inchi's, but with her powerful array skills, even a late-stage Heaven Ascension realm expert might not be her match. Wu Wuxian's status was extremely noble. She was second only to the Sorcerer tribe's holy leader. Many of the leaders of the large tribes had to be respectful to her. Now, not only was Longwen not afraid of the Sorcerer tribe, but he had also asked Wu Wuxian to get down here and die. Although Wu Wuxian was furious, she had not lost her mind. She knew very well that although she was strong, she was still a little weaker than Longwen. Therefore, although she was angry, she did not dare to fight with Zhuo. She secretly sent a message to the holy leader of the Sorcerer tribe, Wu Shinya. After informing him of the situation, she retreated cautiously. Zhuo watched as Wu Wuxian retreated. His right foot suddenly stepped into the void, and the air exploded. The power of time and space condensed under his feet, and as if he had teleported, he disappeared from where he stood. When he reappeared, he was already very close to Wu Wuxian. Zhuo was no longer afraid. Since the Sorcerer tribe had found trouble with him time and time again, they had joined forces with Corpse Inchi and so many other experts to attack him and frame him for violating the rules of the Sorcerer God City. Zhuo could not take this lying down. Although he was afraid of the green-furred mummy and the holy leader of the Sorcerer tribe, he had the teleportation site token. If he wanted to leave, he could crush the token and teleport away. If he did not have such a trump card, Zhuo would not have dared to stay and go against the Sorcerer tribe. That would be courting death. But now he was not afraid. He no longer had any worries. Naturally, he wanted to vent his anger. He wanted to let all the experts in the Sorcerer God City know that he, Zhuo, was not someone who could be bullied easily. If anyone dared to bully him, they would have to be prepared to face his wrath. Damn it! Wu Wuxian cursed inwardly when he saw Zhuo rushing over. He quickly retreated with an ugly expression on his face. Wu Wuxian, do you think you can escape? Zhuo Wen's cold laughter rang out. Before Wu Wuxian had retreated too far, he had already caught up to him. A fierce gust of wind swept out as his jade-like right arm shot out like a spear, aiming for Wu Wuxian's forehead. Bang! Layers of restrictions appeared a few inches in front of Wu Wuxian's forehead. Like an invisible wall, they blocked Zhuowen's attack. However, Wu Wuxian did not have it easy. The power of the punch was very strong. Although most of the force was absorbed by the restrictions, a small part of it still hit her forehead, causing a small amount of blood to appear between her eyebrows. Wu Wuxian kept retreating while Zhuo Wen revealed a look of surprise. Wu Wuxian's attainments in the formation Dao weren't weak at all. The moment he'd unleashed his attack, he'd discovered that Wu Wuxian's entire body was protected by powerful restrictions. This layer of restriction covered Wu Wuxian's body like an invisible armor. It helped her block most of the attack. "You're courting death." Wu Wuxian was also enraged. She had been shocked by Zhuo Wen's battle results, so she felt like she had won without a fight. But now, Zhuo Wen's attack did not break her restriction defense. This made her feel a lot more at ease. She knew that she was just mentally burdened, causing her aura to weaken. Wu Wuxian calmed down and lashed out with the scepter in his hand. Suddenly, the surrounding space and time seemed to have frozen. The pressure around Zhuo Wen instantly became countless times more terrifying, making his limbs feel as if they were filled with lead. His movements became slow, as if he was moving in slow motion. Bang! Chapter 3381. Ownerless City Bang. Zhuo Wen fell to the ground, creating a huge crater. Smoke and dust filled the air, obscuring one's vision. Wu Wuxian heaved a sigh of relief. She realized that she had overestimated Long Wen. Long Wen wasn't that powerful. Looks like he's about to run out of energy after fighting so many mighty figures. Wu Wuxian thought to herself. Wu Wuxian's thoughts were shared by many experts of other races. They also felt that Zhuo Wen had expended too much energy in the battle just now, which was why Wu Wuxian had easily pushed him back. Long Wen, do you think you're a match for me in your current state? Today, I'll kill you as a sacrifice to the many comrades who died. Wu Wuxian snorted coldly and landed not far from the pit. She waved her jade-like hand, summoning array flags one after another. She began to set up a peerless killing array around the pit. She intended to kill Zhuo Wen with this array. However, the moment she set up the embryonic form of the array, a terrifying force rose from beneath her feet. Wu Wuxian decisively threw away the array flags and kicked off the ground, intending to leave this place. Rumble! A palm suddenly shot out from the ground and grabbed Wu Wuxian's foot with extreme speed. Then, a person broke out of the ground. It was Zhuo Wen. Zhuo Wen gripped Wu Wuxian's jade-like foot tightly. His right hand suddenly exerted strength. His arm was translucent, and his strength was boundless. He ruthlessly threw Wu Wuxian onto the ground. Puchi! Wu Wuxian spat out a mouthful of blood, her face pale. She was shocked and angry. Long Wen, you're so cunning. You were just pretending. Zhuo Wen sneered and exerted more force with his right hand. Wu Wuxian was once again thrown to the ground, coughing up blood. If I didn't create some illusion for you, why would you take the initiative to fight me? Zhuo Wen sneered and threw Wu Wuxian to the ground with even more force. Wu Wuxian's body was covered with a powerful restrictive power. Although it helped her block most of the power, there was still a small amount of energy that directly hit her body, causing her to be seriously injured and constantly vomiting blood. Zhuo Wen frowned. The restrictive spells around Wu Wuxian were not weak and were difficult to deal with. If he wanted to break them, it would take a lot of effort. Thinking of this, Zhuo Wen stopped his swinging motion and grabbed Wu Wuxian's right palm, bursting with terrifying black flames. This was the Undying Shaman Fire. Its burning power was terrifying. It was a combination of the undying birds and Zhurong's flames. The quality of its flames even surpassed the undying bird's flames. It could burn everything. Sure enough, as soon as the immortal wizard fire appeared, the restrictive power around Wu Wuxian was immediately burned violently and weakened. It began to show signs of collapse. What kind of flame is this? Wu Wuxian was terrified. She already understood that this Long Wen's strength was very terrifying. She was completely not his match. If this continued, she might die in the hands of this Long One. At the same time that Zhuowen released the immortal wizard fire, he also used the Hongmeng Wuji ultimacy. The Hongmeng Wuji ultimacy was a spell that specialized in breaking restrictive spells. Coupled with Zhuowen's array skills, the restrictive power on Wu Wuxian's surface was being broken faster and faster. Wu Wuxian's face was pale, and fear rose in her heart. She was very clear that in less than 15 minutes, the restrictive power on her body would be completely broken. At that time, it would be the time of her death. Longwen, I am the high priest of the sorcerer race. Our holy lord of the sorcerer race is about to come out. Do you dare to kill me? Wu Wuxian mentioned the holy lord of the sorcerer race, hoping to make Zhuowen afraid. Zhuowen's eyes were cold as he said indifferently, "If Wu Shinya comes out, that's good. I will kill him and make Sorcerer God City a city without a master." When these disgraceful words came out, the countless foreign race experts in the surroundings were in an uproar. They all discussed spiritedly, thinking that Longwen was simply a fearless madman. Wu Wuxian also revealed a look of despair. Only now did she realize how crazy Longwen was. He was not even afraid of Wu Shinya, and had even said that he would kill Wu Shinya. He was simply too audacious. How audacious! You actually want to make Sorcerer God City a city without a master. You are the first person in countless years who dares to say such words. Just as Zhuowen was breaking the restrictive spells on Wu Wuxian's body, a gloomy and majestic voice came from the inner city of Sorcerer God City. The burly holy lord of the sorcerer race, Wu Wuxian, was wearing a purple robe. He slowly walked through the void, step by step. Beside the holy lord of the sorcerer race, Wu Shinya, was a figure wrapped in a black robe. His face could not be seen clearly. Heavens, it's the Holy Lord. I never thought that even a top expert like the Holy Lord would be alarmed. Nonsense! This Longwen has killed so many experts in Sorcerer God City. If the Holy Lord does not appear, it will be very difficult to resolve this matter. When they saw the purple-robed Holy Lord of the sorcerer race, Wu Shinya, slowly walking over, all the foreign race experts in Sorcerer God City revealed expressions of fear and respect. The Holy Lord of the sorcerer race was publicly acknowledged as the strongest expert in the sorcerer race. His cultivation had reached the peak of the sky-piercing realm. Other than those old monsters who had lived in seclusion, who else could fight with Wu Shinya? As for the black-robed man beside Wu Shinya, everyone subconsciously ignored him. They only paid attention to the radiant Wu Shinya. Zhuowen glanced at Wu Shinya. Then his gaze fell on the black-robed man beside Wu Shinya. His gaze was filled with fear. He felt the aura of the green-furred corpse and did not think that the black-robed man was Green Hat. You are called Longwen, right? You are a genius. Your strength and talent are both excellent. If you let go of the high priest, I will not take your life. I will be lenient with you. As Wu Shinya walked, he looked at Zhuowen with arrogance. Wu Shinya was very confident. He believed that if he appeared, Longwen would be respectful and would not dare to offend him. At the same time, Wu Shinya's heart was filled with anger. This anger was not because Zhuowen had killed so many experts in Sorcerer God City, but because the 3 corpses in the ancestral sorcerer wonderland had disappeared. He was furious. He guessed that the 3 corpses were most likely with Longwen. He would not kill Longwen, but he would imprison him in the sorcerer race's prison for eternity. He would torture him in different ways and make him suffer, so much that he would not want to die. Wu Shinya's calm expression was only to calm Longwen down. After all, Wu Wuxian was still in Long Wen's hands. If that was not the case, he would have killed Long Wen with a palm strike. Zhuowen sneered, as if he did not hear Wu Xinya's words. He continued to use the immortal sorcerer fire to break the restrictions on Wu Wuxian's body. The restrictions on Wu Wuxian's body continued to collapse and eventually disappeared. No, Wu Wuxian's eyes widened as his body was burned by the immortal sorcerer fire. He let out a miserable shriek. "You are courting death." Wu Xinya's pupils shrank when he saw Wu Wuxian screaming miserably as he was burned by the undying shaman fire. His previous calm demeanor was long gone. He was both shocked and furious. He suddenly increased his speed and rushed towards Zhuowen. Zhuowen grabbed Wu Wuxian's neck with one hand and quickly retreated. The immortal sorcerer fire started to burn from Wu Wuxian's feet and quickly spread to his body. Wu Wuxian's pupils dilated as he screamed. He watched as his feet turned into ashes, then his body and hands. Chapter 3382. Divine arrows fired with his divine ability. As long as Wu Wuxian's divine soul was not destroyed and only her head was left, he could still save her. Zhuowen sneered and threw Wu Wuxian's head to the back with all his might. No, Wu Xinya roared and chased after Wu Wuxian's head with all his might. When Wu Xinya caught up to Wu Wuxian's head, the undying witch fire completely engulfed Wu Wuxian's head. Wu Wuxian's screams came to an abrupt end. Her head was completely burned, and even her divine soul was destroyed. The instant Wu Wuxian's body was destroyed, Witch God City became abnormally quiet, so quiet that it was somewhat strange. All the foreign race experts were silent. They silently watched all of this with expressions of shock and disbelief. They were moved by Zhuowen's boldness. This kid dared to kill the second strongest person of the witch race, Wu Wuxian, in front of the Holy Lord of the witch race. There was no room for discussion. He was too strong and too arrogant. I, Long Wen, am a man of my word. I said that if you stop me, I will kill you and make Witch God City a masterless city. I, Long Wen, will naturally do my best. Zhuowen's following words caused all the foreign race experts in Witch God City to feel dizzy. This guy was actually spouting nonsense again. Did he really think that Wu Xinya was Wu Wuxian or Corpse Inchuan? Wu Xinya was a peak expert of the sky-piercing realm. He stood at the peak of this heaven domain. This guy was about to die, but he still dared to speak so arrogantly. Of course, this was what most of the foreign race experts thought. However, the black-robed Green Hat did not think so. Green Hat floated on the other side, sizing up Zhuowen. He laughed sinisterly. This kid has really matured. His strength has increased by so much. What a terrifying speed of improvement. After saying this, Zhuowen took out the Ho-E Divine Bow and Ho-E Divine Arrow from the outside world. He knocked the Ho-E Divine Arrow on the bowstring and pulled the bowstring to a full moon. Instantly, a terrifying killing intent flooded the sky above Sorcerer God City. His Pangu's sacred body had evolved again, and his strength had increased tremendously. He was now able to pull the string of Ho-E Divine Bow to its limit and give full play to the power of Ho-E Divine Arrows. When everyone felt the terrifying killing intent, their pupils shrank to the size of needles as fear filled their hearts. Some of the weaker foreign races even knelt on the ground with a plop because they couldn't withstand such a terrifying killing intent. Wu Xinya also felt this terrifying murderous aura. He turned around and looked at Zhuowen, who was drawing his bow. The anger in his eyes became even more intense. No wonder you dared to be so arrogant in front of me. So it turns out that you have trump cards like the Ho-E Divine Bow and Ho-E Divine Arrow. However, do you think this kind of divine artifact can hurt me? That's just wishful thinking. Wu Xinya sneered as he rushed towards Zhuowen with a terrifying aura. He wanted to tear apart this kid's body with his own hands and grab his soul. He wanted to make him suffer inhumane torture for eternity to vent the hatred in his heart. Bang! Zhuowen shot out the first Ho-E divine arrow without any hesitation. The divine arrow tore through the sky and exploded with a dazzling bloody light. The energy waves formed a huge mushroom cloud in the sky. It was very terrifying. Wu Xinya roared as he punched out. His muscles swelled and his blood energy soared into the sky, forming a huge blood pillar. What made Zhuowen's eyes narrow was that Wu Xinya had actually sent the Ho-E divine arrow flying with a single punch. Moreover, he only retreated a few dozen steps before stabilizing himself. As expected of the sorcerer race's holy lord, Wu Xinya's sorcerer body has already reached 9 stars. Combined with his cultivation, he can actually take on the Ho-E divine arrow head-on. It's truly inconceivable. Moon Wolf race's patriarch, Itaiha, commented in fear. Not only Itaiha, the other foreign race experts were also shocked by Wu Xinya's move. Zhuowen was also shocked. Wu Xinya's physical body was terrifyingly strong. He had actually sent the Ho-E divine arrow flying with a single punch. Wu Xinya took a deep breath as he forcefully suppressed the surging blood energy in his body. Even though he had only retreated a few dozen steps, he had actually suffered some light injuries from the previous attack. However, he had forcefully suppressed his injuries. He was very angry now and wanted to crush this hateful Long when in front of him with an overwhelming force. In his opinion, this kid only had one Ho-E divine arrow at most. After sending one flying, this kid had no other trump cards left. It would be very easy for him to take down this kid. Longwen, do you only have these little tricks? In front of me, these are all trash. Today, just obediently send yourself to death. Wu Xinya attacked again. His speed was extremely fast, and he exploded in the sky with a terrifying sound. Wherever he passed, space would distort and collapse. It was a terrifying aura. At this moment, Zhuowen revealed a trace of a smile on his face. Behind him, a pair of huge illusory eyes appeared. The moment he shot the Ho-E divine arrow, he had used the torch dragon's eyes. The torch dragon's eyes could see through all illusions. Just now, when Wu Xinya had taken the Ho-E divine arrow head-on, he had sensed through the torch dragon's eyes that Wu Xinya had suffered some light injuries. Are you looking down on me? You will be in big trouble. Zhuowen sneered. He took out another Ho-E godly arrow, pulled the bowstring to a full moon, and released the bowstring. With a bang, the Ho-E godly arrow shot out again, aiming straight for Wu Xinya's vital point. With the torch dragon's eyes, Zhuowen's combination with the Ho-E divine arrow was simply flawless. He could instantly determine the opponent's weak points and shoot out a fatal blow. Wu Xinya's pupils shrank. He didn't expect Zhuowen to have Ho-E divine arrows. He let out a low roar and punched out, knocking away the second Ho-E divine arrow. On the other hand, Wu Xinya was forced back 30 to 40 steps. His breathing became ragged. Zhuowen naturally wouldn't give Wu Xinya a chance to rest. He took out the third and fourth Ho-E divine arrow and shot it out. Bang! Wu Xinya roared. He didn't dare to take it head-on with his physical body anymore. He took out his divine artifact. Wu Xinya's divine artifact was a long saber. The saber's surface was covered with strange and dense patterns. It was filled with an ancient aura. Wu Xinya raised the saber and blocked the 2 Ho-E divine arrows. However, as he blocked the arrows, he continued to retreat. He had underestimated his opponent too much and had already suffered some injuries. Now, blocking the 2 Ho-E divine arrows aggravated his injuries. Whoosh! Whoosh, whoosh. The moment Wu Xinya blocked the 2 Hou-Yi divine arrows, Zhuowen shot out 3 Hou-Yi divine arrows. The 3 arrows tore through the air and drew 3 beautiful arcs in the air before landing in front of Wu Xinya. Damn it! How does this guy have so many Hou-Yi divine arrows? Chapter 3383. Statue of the 12 ancestral shamans. Wu Xinya's face was as pale as snow and his body was trembling. The 7 Hou-Yi godly arrows that were pulled into a full moon were too terrifying. Wu Xinya was already exhausted, especially the 3 Hou-Yi godly arrows in front of him. They were like sticky candy that landed on the surface of his saber. A terrifying killing intent invaded his body, causing his injuries to worsen. An even more terrifying and vast energy surged into the surface of Wu Xinya's saber like a flood. Wu Xinya let out muffled groans as he continuously retreated. His hands that were holding the saber began to tremble violently. Bang! After retreating several hundred steps, Wu Xinya suddenly stomped his foot in the air. A terrifying shockwave created a terrifying storm around him. Wu Xinya gasped for breath. He raised his head and fiercely looked at Long Wen in the distance. He roared, "Long Wen, let's see if you still have any more Hou-Yi godly arrows. This should be the last 3. Wait until I regroup. I'll make you wish you were dead." When Wu Xinya's gaze finally landed on Zhuowen, his vicious words came to an abrupt end. Hovering in the air, Long Wen was still holding the Hou-Yi godly bow in his left hand, while his right hand was holding another Hou-Yi godly arrow. He had already pulled the bowstring of the Hou-Yi godly bow to a full moon. How is this possible? This guy still has. Wu Xinya felt incredulous. The veins on his hands bulged, as he barely managed to knock away the 3 Hou-Yi godly arrows and quickly retreated. Bang! When Wu Xinya was barely able to knock away the 3 Hou-Yi divine arrows, Zhuowen had already released the bowstring. A thunderous boom resounded through the sky and instantly arrived in front of Wu Xinya. Wu Xinya's pupils shrunk. At this moment, he had just sent the 3 Hou-Yi divine arrows flying. In addition, his body was already heavily injured. At this moment, his body had already revealed a large opening. He simply did not have the time to block this sky-piercing divine arrow. Puchi! The arrow pierced through the sky. Wu Xinya did not have any extra strength to block it. He could only watch as the arrow pierced through his chest. Blood blossomed like a flower and scattered across the sky. Wu Xinya spat out a mouthful of blood. He was in a very sorry state. His body was unstable as he fell to the ground. All the non-human experts in Sorcerer God City were dumbfounded when they saw this. Wu Xinya came with an overbearing aura. He was incomparably arrogant, as if he could kill anyone he wanted. Everyone also thought that Wu Xinya would be able to easily take down Long Wen. However, the scene before them caused everyone's jaws to drop. Not only was Wu Xinya unable to suppress Long Wen, he was instead riddled with wounds by Long Wen. He was in an extremely sorry state, and this was out of everyone's expectations. "Old dog Wu, you came here aggressively and threatened to take my life. What was going on now? They couldn't even withstand a single blow. You're a disgrace to the holy lord of the sorcerer tribe." Zhuowen sneered as space-time energy spread out from his feet. He disappeared into thin air and reappeared in front of Wu Xinya. Rumble! Zhuowen unleashed all the energy of the 8-star middle stage Panga's sacred body. His body became crystal clear, emitting a white light as if it was made of the most exquisite jade. Then he punched out with a terrifying thunderous sound. Hearing Zhuowen's insults, Wu Xinya was so angry that he almost spat out a mouthful of blood. However, his expression quickly changed as he felt a strong sense of threat from Zhuowen's fist. Wu Xinya roared as he unleashed the power of the ninth star wizard body. He ignored the injuries on his body and punched out as well. Bang! 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 In an instant, the two of them clashed. Terrifying fist auras swept out like hurricanes, looking extremely terrifying. Moreover, the two of them were fighting with their physical bodies. They seemed to be evenly matched. Wu Xinya's pupils shrank. The more he fought, the more shocked he became. He felt that this was inconceivable. He had a trace of the wizard ancestor's bloodline in his body, which allowed him to cultivate the wizard body at an extremely fast speed. He was the only peerless expert in the wizard tribe who had reached the ninth star wizard body. His physical body was so powerful that other tribes could not compare to him. However, Longwen was fighting him with his physical body. Moreover, Longwen was not weaker than him, and was even suppressing him. Wu Xinya did not know why, but he felt that his bloodline was boiling with fear as he fought with Longwen. It was as if his bloodline was being suppressed by Longwen's bloodline. Wu Xinya felt that this was inconceivable. He wondered what kind of bloodline Longwen had. Even his wizard ancestor's bloodline was being suppressed. This did not make sense. Zhuowen's gaze was cold as he was surprised. This was because when he fought with Wu Xinya, he felt a trace of familiarity from Wu Xinya's bloodline. It was the aura of the wizard ancestor. He knew that Wu Xinya should have a trace of the wizard ancestor's bloodline. No wonder his physical body was so powerful. It was because of the wizard ancestor's bloodline. Although Wu Xinya's wizard body was much higher than Zhuowen's, Zhuowen had the Panga sacred body, which was much higher than the wizard ancestor's bloodline. Even if his level was lower than Wu Xinya's, he could still suppress Wu Xinya. Moreover, Wu Xinya was heavily injured by Zhuowen's divine arrow. In a physical fight, he was even less of a match for Zhuowen. Rumble! Zhuowen dodged Wu Xinya's fist. Through the torch dragon's eye, he saw through Wu Xinya's weak point. His fist tore through the air and instantly landed on Wu Xinya's weak point. It broke through Wu Xinya's defense and smashed into his abdomen. Wu Xinya groaned. His waist arched as he fell from the sky and smashed into the ground. Wu Xinya's body was covered in blood. His hair was disheveled and his face was dirty. He looked very miserable. All the foreign race experts in the wizard god city sucked in a breath of cold air. At this moment, their view of Zhuowen had completely changed. This guy was too abnormal. Wu Xinya had personally made a move, but not only was he unable to take him down, he was even beaten up miserably. This was the holy lord of the wizard race, not some random dog or cat. Longwen, I want you to die. Wu Xinya felt humiliated. He roared. In front of so many people in his own territory, Wu Xinya was beaten to such a state by a nameless outsider. It was too miserable. Wu Xinya was not willing to give up. He bit his fingertip and drew a complicated pattern on his palm. Then he smashed it into the air. The blood-colored runes left his palm and shot out towards the inner city, landing on the 12 ancestral shaman statues in the guarded ground. Rumble! Rumble! Suddenly, the 12 ancestral shaman statues that had been motionless suddenly moved. They gave off ancient and extremely powerful auras. The 12 wizard statues leaped into the air. When they landed on the ground, they were already around Wu Xinya. They faced Zhuowen and let out earth-shaking roars. Damn! This is the true 12 divine fiendish formation that the sage of the wizard race set up in the guarded ground. It's the foundation of the wizard race. It's said that this formation surpasses most heaven passage great formations. It's a true heaven passage great formation. When the 12 ancestral, which statues surrounded Wu Xinya, all the foreign race experts in Wu Xinya subconsciously retreated. They looked at this scene with apprehension. The 12 divine fiendish formation of the wizard race was famous throughout the eldritch heaven domain. It was extremely powerful and was set up by the wizard race's top experts. It had never been used for countless years. Chapter 3384. Torn right arm, but now. The 12 Overseers Divine Wraith Formation, which had never been activated before, was not only activated, but it was also activated because of a small clan's genius. This contrast made many experts feel strange. But at the same time, Sorcerer God City was filled with fear and reverence for Zhuowen. The fact that this kid could force Sorcerer Gadya into such a state was truly terrifying. In the future, if any of you are blind enough to provoke Long One, he won't need to do anything. I'll personally kill you. The Moonwolf clan's patriarch, Itaiha's expression changed greatly. He cautiously warned the Moonwolf clan's juniors, especially Tu Qian and Qian Ping. Long Wen's strength was beyond his expectations. When he saw the scene just now, his legs trembled. It was too terrifying. Was this guy even human? The Space-Time Beast clan, Giant Turtle clan, and many other clans' patriarchs also warned them not to provoke Long One. If they did, they would personally kill them in the name of righteousness. Interesting. He was wearing a black robe and a green hat. He looked very relaxed as he leaned against the inner city's wall, watching the battle before him and laughing. So, this is the true 12 Overseers Divine Wraith Formation. Zhuowen looked at the 12 ancestral shaman statues in astonishment. The terrifying aura they emitted made Zhuowen's expression change. Zhuowen had set up the 12 Overseers Divine Wraith Formation before. He did not know that the 12 ancestral shaman phantoms that appeared in the 12 Overseers Divine Wraith Formation were not real. They were just phantoms formed by the formation's energy. Zhuowen was very surprised at that time. The 12 Overseers Divine Wraith Formation was an extremely famous heaven-piercing killing formation. Its power was definitely not ordinary. However, when he set up the 12 Overseers Divine Wraith Formation, its power could only be considered an ordinary heaven-piercing killing formation. He was puzzled at that time, but now he finally knew the reason. Moreover, Sorcerer God used the 12 Overseers Divine Wraith Formation to deal with him. Zhuowen also laughed. He had the Pangus Sacred Body bloodline, which was of a higher grade than the 12 ancestral shamans. These 12 ancestral shaman statues contained a small portion of the ancestral shaman's blood essence, which was the source of their energy. If he were to use these 12 statues to deal with other pinnacle sky-reaching masters, it might really be difficult to deal with them, and he might even be able to suppress them. However, it would be a joke if they came to deal with Zhuowen, who had the bloodline of the Pangus Sacred Body. Long One, die. Wu Shinya sat cross-legged on the ground and swallowed a healing pill. He began to heal his injuries. His eyes were gloomy as he stared at Long One in the distance with a smug smile. He knew very well how powerful the 12 ancestral sorcerer statues were. Even if he were to face them, he would probably be severely injured. Long One would definitely be in a miserable state. Besides, Wu Shinya truly didn't want to admit defeat. He underestimated his enemy too much at the beginning, which allowed Zhuowen to severely injure him with his divine arrows. That was why he was suppressed by Zhuowen in the following battles. If he were to fight Long One at his peak, Wu Shinya believed that he would definitely be able to destroy Long One. When I've mostly recovered, Long One, just wait for your death. Oh, no, you don't have the chance anymore. The 12 statues will completely destroy you, and you'll die without a burial place. Wu Shinya sneered again and again. While healing his injuries, he looked at how the 12 statues would kill Long One. However, when he looked in Long One's direction, he was completely dumbfounded. The scene of the 12 ancestral, which statues attacking Long One together, and causing Long Wen to run for his life did not appear in his mind. Instead, what he saw was the 12 statues surrounding Long Wen, kneeling on one knee on the ground, showing their submission. What the hell? What's going on? Wu Xinya almost stomped his feet as he looked at this scene in disbelief. How could the statues of the 12 ancestral sorcerers submit to an outsider? Even his divine will did not work. Zhuowen stood in the center of the 12 statues and looked straight at the shocked Wu Xinya. He smiled faintly and said, "Wu Xinya, you're dead." As soon as Zhuowen finished speaking, the 12 ancestral sorcerer statues suddenly stood up and strode towards Wu Xinya. Boom, boom, boom. The 12 statues were too big. When they stood up, they seemed to be able to support the heavens and earth. When they stepped on the ground, it was as if the heavens and earth were collapsing. It was a terrifying sight. When Wu Xinya saw that the 12 statues obeyed Zhuowen's orders and started to attack him, his expression changed, and he quickly retreated. Unfortunately, the moment Wu Xinya retreated, a powerful array ripple appeared behind him. It formed a powerful force that prevented Wu Xinya from retreating. Trap array? When did you set it up behind me? Wu Xinya's pupils shrank as he looked at Zhuowen. He saw the crafty smile on Zhuowen's face and knew that this trap array was set up by Zhuowen. This kid was able to set up a trap array without anyone noticing. It could be seen that his array Dao skills were not weaker than High Priest Wu Wuxian. He might even be stronger. The combination of powerful strength and superb array Dao skills made even Wu Xinya's scalp go numb. He suddenly punched out, shattering the trap array behind him. The trap array's level was not high. It could only stop him for a breath's time. However, one breath of time was enough. The 12 ancestral shaman statues instantly surrounded Wu Xinya. 12 fierce attacks also came at the same time, enveloping Wu Xinya from all directions. Wu Xinya's expression changed. He stomped his right foot and his entire body spun like a whirlwind, blocking the 12 fierce attacks. The 12 ancestral shaman statues were pushed back several steps. On the other hand, Wu Xinya was not in a good condition. The attack just now had worsened the injuries on his body, making it even more serious. Boom, boom, boom. After the 12 statues stabilized themselves, they continued to attack. They were like machines that did not know fatigue. Each wave of attacks was fiercer and fiercer than the previous one. They did not stop at all, causing Wu Xinya to be in a sorry state. Wu Xinya's injuries became more and more serious. Blood splattered everywhere and formed small streams on the ground. Puchi! Wu Xinya spat out a mouthful of blood as he was forced back by the 12 statues. However, he did not have time to rest. The moment he retreated, another statue's attack landed behind him. Wu Xinya had no choice but to turn around to block the attack. Ah, Longwen, you and I cannot live under the same sky. Suddenly, Wu Xinya let out a miserable cry. His right arm was torn off. All the foreign race experts in Wu Xinya City saw a figure standing on the shoulder of one of the statues. The figure held Wu Xinya's torn right arm with a cold gaze. Chapter 3385. Countless experts in the Sorcerer God City fell silent. They looked at Wu Xinya's torn right arm with complicated expressions. The situation had changed too quickly. They did not even have time to react. Wu Xinya roared. He was unwilling to give up, but the statues of the 12 ancestral shamans would not give him any chance to catch his breath. One after another, fierce attacks were launched at Wu Xinya. Although Wu Xinya raised his hand to block, he still spat out a mouthful of blood. His face was pale and his aura was weak. Zhuowen threw away Wu Xinya's right arm. He looked down at Wu Xinya and said, "Wu Xinya, submit to me, and I will spare your life." Puchi. At this moment, Wu Xinya was hit again. He spat out a mouthful of blood, and his expression was ugly. Wu Shenya's eyes were filled with hatred. He glared at Zhuowen and took out a blood-red compass from his spiritual ring. Long Wen, just wait and see. The day I make a comeback will be the day you die. Wu Shenya took out the blood-red compass. The compass spun rapidly, and a blazing blood-red light enveloped Wu Shenya. Boom, boom, boom. The attacks from the 12 statues arrived and smashed onto Wu Shenya's body. However, the moment the attacks landed on Wu Shenya's body, Wu Shenya disappeared. The compass that was floating in the air also shattered. Zhuowen squinted his eyes and looked towards the inner city. He realized that Wu Shenya had already landed on the inner city wall. At this moment, the experts of the sorcerer tribe in the inner city were all gathered on the city wall. The protective array of the inner city had already been activated. Powerful ripples of array Dao spread out, shocking everyone's hearts. Zhuowen sighed. He knew that after Wu Shenya entered the inner city, he would no longer have the chance to kill him. The inner city of the Sorcerer God City was the true core of the sorcerer tribe. The forbidden array here had been accumulated over countless years. Even if Zhuowen entered the inner city, not only would he not be able to break the array, he might even be trapped inside and die. Moreover, there were many experts in the sorcerer tribe. If he barged in and was trapped in the formation, he would definitely be besieged by countless experts of the sorcerer tribe. At that time, even if he had 3 heads and 6 arms, he would still die inside. However, he was not afraid in the outer city. After all, if he could not defeat them, he could escape. Moreover, he had obtained the statues of the 12 ancestors of sorcery. If the sorcerer tribe warriors dared to leave the inner city to kill him, they would all die. After Wu Shun landed on the inner city wall, 2 sorcerer tribe experts immediately came forward to support him. Holy Lord, why don't you let us go as well? We have so many experts in the sorcerer tribe. If we attack together, even if Longwen has the ability to reach the heavens, he will still have to bow down. One of the experts from the sorcerer tribe said indignantly. When they saw Wu Shenya being suppressed, they asked Wu Shenya to help them, but they were rejected by Wu Shenya. Without Wu Shenya's permission, they didn't dare to act on their own. They could only watch as Wu Shenya was beaten to such a state. This expert from the sorcerer tribe couldn't help but suggest to Wu Shenya to send out the experts from the sorcerer tribe to take down Longwen. If you want to die, I won't stop you. As for the other disciples of the sorcerer tribe, they are not allowed to leave the inner city. I don't know what method Longwen used to control the statues of the 12 ancestors of sorcery. You also know how powerful the statues of the 12 ancestors of sorcery are. Even at my peak, I didn't dare to fight against the statues of the 12 ancestors of sorcery, let alone you. No matter how many experts you send out, you will only be cannon fodder. Wu Shenya said with a gloomy expression. He wasn't afraid of Longwen, but he was afraid of the statues of the 12 ancestors of sorcery. Holy Lord, what should we do? Are we going to let Longwen run rampant in front of us while we let him do whatever he wants? This is the Sorcerer God City. If he causes trouble here, he is slapping us in the face. The expert from the sorcerer tribe side. Wu Shenya's gaze was gloomy as he looked at the green hat wearing a black robe below the city wall. He said, Senior, the 3 ancestors of sorcery should be on Longwen. Don't you need the ancestors of sorcery's corpses? Green Hat crossed his arms. When he heard Wu Shenya's words, he laughed. What? Wu Shenya, you were beaten up like a stray dog and ran away in embarrassment. Now, you want me to help you settle this? Wu Shenya hurriedly cupped his hands and said, Shenya doesn't dare. Shenya is just fighting for Senior. The 3 ancestors of sorcery's corpses belong to our sorcerer tribe. Shen Ye originally wanted to give them to Senior. However, this Long One interfered and openly took the 3 ancestors of sorcery's corpses. Shen Ye used all my strength to take the corpses for Senior. Unfortunately, Shen Ye is useless and is not Long Wen's opponent. I have let Senior down. Green Hat coldly laughed. He didn't care about Wu Shenya's hypocrisy and said indifferently, "Although your words have no sincerity, you are right about one thing. I have great use for the 3 ancestors of sorcery's corpses, and Longwen is also very useful to me. This brat dared to take my things, so he must pay the price. This price is related to his life." After saying this, Green Hat took a step forward and rushed towards Zhuowen. Wu Shenya looked at Green Hat's departing figure and let out a light sigh. A smile appeared on his face. He knew that Green Hat's strength had definitely reached the half-step heaven-breaking realm. Moreover, he was a supreme expert who had experienced the 5 decay of heaven. With such an expert taking action, Longwen was dead for sure. Zhuowen seemed to have sensed something. He raised his head and looked at Green Hat, who was slowly walking over. His gaze instantly became gloomy. "Brat, you're really cunning enough. You were actually able to escape my imprisonment. I forgot that you're also a powerful divine array master. I miscalculated." Green Hat floated several hundred meters away from Zhuowen and calmly looked at Zhuowen. His ancient and hoarse voice slowly sounded. The foreign race experts in Sorcerer God City were still in shock from the battle, now that they saw a mysterious black-robed person appear, and it seemed like he wanted to oppose Longwen. They all revealed astonished expressions. Who is this person? Is he planning to challenge Longwen? Is he courting death? There's something wrong with this person's head. Didn't he see how terrifying Longwen's performance was? Even the Holy Lord of the Sorcerer race was heavily injured by him and could only run into the inner city with his tail between his legs. This guy still dares to come out and challenge him. His guts aren't ordinary. What guts? This guy is obviously looking for death. Many of the foreign race experts in Sorcerer God City roared with laughter. They felt that the black-robed person had come here to seek death. Everyone subconsciously thought that Zhuowen was already the strongest person in Sorcerer God City. In their hearts, Zhuowen had already become the symbol of invincibility. Even Wu Shenya had been defeated by this brat. Who else could be his match? Moreover, this guy had the 12 ancestral sorcerer statues. His strength had reached a new level. Even if Wu Shenya was at his peak, he would probably have to retreat and not dare to face the powerful Long One. However, the patriarchs of the Moonwolf race, Giant Turtle race, and other super races all frowned when they saw the black-robed person. They felt a terrifying aura from Green Hat's body. Chapter 3386. Half-step to break the Heavens Zhuowen stood on the shoulder of an ancestral sorcerer statue and looked at Green Hat with fear. He said in a deep voice, "Green Hat, you and I have minded our own business. There is no need for us to fight. Why don't you go your own way, and I go mine? What do you say?" "You are right. Your progress is too fast. Even I feel that it is inconceivable. How about this? Hand over the 3 ancestral sorcerer corpses, and the Panga banner on you. I will not make things difficult for you, and will let you leave. Also, don't give me random names. I don't like being called Green Hat." Green Hat said indifferently. Zhuowen sneered and said, 3 ancestral sorcerer corpses, and the Panga banner. "Green Hat, your appetite is really big. It seems like you don't want to cooperate. What a pity. You and I can only fight." Green Hat shook his head and sighed. He continued, "Zhuowen, you should know that my strength is far above Wu Shenya's. Your Panga sacred body is indeed powerful, but unfortunately, it is only at the middle of the 8-star level. The gap between us is too big. If you fight with me, you will die. I am doing this for your own good. Hand over the Panga banner and the ancestral sorcerer corpses, and I will not deal with you in the future. I can even guarantee that your future path will be smooth and bright. Zhuowen sneered again and again. He did not believe Green Hat's words. At the same time, Zhuowen was very afraid. This Green Hat was able to see through his Panga's sacred body, and its level. It was obvious that this guy had some understanding of the Pangu's sacred body. He was also very curious in his heart. Just who was this Green Hat? He knew too many things, and his strength was so terrifying. Could it be that this guy was really a creature from the beginning of the world and had lived until now? Let's fight. I want to see just how strong you are and the gap between us. Zhuowen licked his lips. The battle intent in his eyes was like a blazing sun that slowly burned. Humph, you really don't know what death is. How dare you challenge my pressure? Zhuowen, you will die miserably. Green Hat sneered. Suddenly, a terrifying green light erupted from his body. The black robe that wrapped around his body was directly torn to shreds by the powerful energy, revealing his mummified body. The green light was too strong. It illuminated the sky and covered the entire Sorcerer God City in green. Even the line of sight was green. The moment the green light covered the entire Sorcerer God City, the Green Hat moved as well. He swept out without a trace. Zhuowen did not even see the figure of green light clearly. His pupils shrank as he discovered that the 12 ancestral sorcerer statues around him had begun to collapse and crumble. In the end, they shattered into countless fine powder. The ancestral sorcerer statue beneath Zhuowen's feet also collapsed. Zhuowen stomped his foot and left the area of the ancestral sorcerer statue. However, at this very moment, an unprecedented sense of danger rose in Zhuowen's mind. Soon after, he sensed a frightening astral wind rumbling towards him from behind. This gust of wind was too strong. It constantly swept out and blew Zhuowen's hair, causing Zhuowen to be in a mess. Zhuowen's expression changed drastically. He only had time to use the profound creation mysterious light and concentrated on his back. The white light formed an oval light shield. Bang! The light shield suffered a heavy blow. Zhuowen was affected by the aftershock and spat out a mouthful of blood. However, during this gap, Zhuowen's speed was extremely fast. He quickly fell from the sky. At the same time, the light shield shattered and a ferocious green claw swept out. Zhuowen just happened to dodge this green claw. Bang! Zhuowen's feet landed on the ground. He looked at the green-haired mummy that appeared where he was with lingering fear. This Green Hat was too fast. He appeared and disappeared like a ghost. Zhuowen couldn't see his exact whereabouts. Thinking of this, a pair of huge illusory eyes rose behind Zhuowen. It was the Torch Dragon's eyes. The moment he used the Torch Dragon's eyes, Zhuowen's vision suddenly widened. He could also barely see Green Hat's figure. Bang! Suddenly, Green Hat had already swept in front of him. Zhuowen suddenly punched out. Boom! 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 The two fists collided, and a terrifying wave spread out. Immediately, Zhuowen spat out a mouthful of blood. His face turned pale and bloodless, and he retreated repeatedly. Zhuowen stabilized his body and saw Green Hat standing in the same place, motionless and looking at him strangely. Torch Dragon's eyes? It seems that you can see through my movement skill. How rare! But it doesn't matter. Today, you are destined to die here. Green Hat sneered and shook his head. He stomped his feet and rushed out. With a thunderous sound, he attacked Zhuowen again. Bang! 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 Zhuowen and Green Hat collided, and he was sent flying again. Moreover, he continued to retreat. At this moment, Zhuowen finally knew how big the gap was between him and Green Hat. This was like a child fighting with an adult. They were not on the same level at all. Zhuowen was being suppressed too severely. Bang! Zhuowen spat out a mouthful of blood. His chest had been struck by a punch. Countless cracks began to appear on his crystalline body. It was as if he had been shattered into pieces. He looked very miserable, sparkling blood-splattered, making Zhuowen look very wretched. And this scene stunned all the foreign race elites in Sorcerer God City. What kind of situation was this? The arrogant Long-Wen was actually being suppressed by this mysterious person who had suddenly appeared. In fact, he was even being beaten into an extremely wretched state. Just how powerful was this mysterious person? This mysterious person is definitely an elite who has surpassed the peak of the sky-piercing master. He is very likely a supreme elite who is half a step into the shattering heaven realm. What? A half step into the shattering heaven realm elite? Don't elites of this level basically not appear in the world? Why is he interfering with the sorcerer tribe's matters now? Who knows? It is very likely that he is some hidden elite of the sorcerer tribe. This Long-Wen offended such an elite. He is finished. After the foreign race elites in Sorcerer God City saw through Green Hat's strength, they started to not have much hope for Zhuowen. The gap between the two of them was really too big. Bang! Green Hat rushed over again. Zhuowen swayed and could only raise his hands to block Green Hat's attack. Kacha! Zhuowen's hands were directly broken, and he was sent flying. His entire body was already covered in blood. It was very wretched. Whoosh! While Zhuowen's body was still in midair, his eyes slowly opened, and he saw Green Hat rushing over. Zhuowen, do you have any last words? If not, you can go on your way. A trace of a sinister smile appeared on Green Hat's face. His right hand formed a claw, and he suddenly clawed at Zhuowen's heart. Zhuowen looked at the claw that was getting closer and closer, and he was very unwilling in his heart. With a roar, an extremely terrifying aura burst forth from his body. All the blood in his body was boiling, and the ruptured blood quickly condensed. A blazing light exploded in his body. Green Hat's pupils constricted. In a moment of carelessness, he was hit by this light and was sent flying back repeatedly. Chapter 3387. Panga's shadow Wu Shinya stood on top of the inner city wall like a boulder. He looked at Zhuowen, who was being suppressed by Green Hat, and his eyes were filled with delight. Long-Wen, you're just an ant in front of this senior. You're dead. Wu Shinya muttered to himself. His tone was filled with regret. He regretted that he couldn't kill Long-Wen with his own hands. However, to be able to see Zhuowen suffer, Wu Shinya was very happy. He couldn't wait for Zhuowen to be completely destroyed by the cuckold. However, Wu Shinya soon discovered that something was wrong. In the distance, Green Hat, who had been planning to kill Long-Wen, was sent flying by a wave of energy. Soon after, he saw Zhuowen's body explode with a dazzling light. A vast and terrifying aura spread out like a tide. Even Wu Shinya felt that it was inconceivable. What's going on? Why is Long-Wen emitting such a terrifying aura? Wu Shinya's body trembled. He felt a terrifying threat from this aura. It wasn't just Wu Shinya. All the foreign race experts in which God City felt their hearts skip a beat when they felt this terrifying aura. They quickly distanced themselves from Zhuowen. They discussed spiritedly. They didn't know what had happened to Zhuowen's body to cause such a terrifying aura to explode out. Green Hat retreated a few hundred meters away. His eyes narrowed as he stared at Zhuowen, who was emitting a dazzling light. His expression was very serious. Countless rays of light shot up into the sky and gathered together, forming a huge shadow that stood between the heavens and the earth. This enormous figure was naked from the waist up. Its entire body was translucent like glass. Although this figure was very blurry, its glass-like luster made it extremely eye-catching and dazzling, especially the terrifying aura emitted by this figure. It was as if countless mountains were crushing down, spreading throughout Witch God City. All the foreign race experts in Witch God City couldn't withstand this powerful aura and knelt on the ground. Even the patriarchs of the Moonwolf clan, Giant Tortoise clan, and the rest of the 10 great clans couldn't breathe under this pressure. They groaned and knelt on one knee. As for those who weren't strong enough, they were all heavily injured and unconscious. Zhuowen slowly floated at the chest of this huge and terrifying glass figure. His body was still riddled with wounds, dripping with blood, and his face was even paler. Is this the Panga Shadow, the ultimate power of the Panga banner? So powerful! Zhuowen covered his chest as he felt the horrifying aura released by the shadow. His expression changed slightly as he was shocked. At the same time, his expression was very ugly. He found that when he cast the Panga silhouette, the spirit blood of his Panga's sacred body was boiling and being consumed as if it was being absorbed by the Panga silhouette. Zhuowen knew that the Panga's sacred body's spirit blood was needed to maintain the Panga silhouette. He was already heavily injured to begin with, and now that his blood essence was being continuously absorbed, his aura began to weaken, making him look battered and exhausted. I must end this quickly. Zhuowen stared at Green Hat, who was not far away, with a look of fear in his eyes. He secretly took out the blood-colored token, and with a thought, the Pangu's silhouette moved. Boom, 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 boom. The Pangu's silhouette suddenly punched out with its right hand, causing the air to explode, and set off a terrifying energy ripple towards Green Hat. Green Hat's expression darkened. He didn't expect that Zhuowen would be able to summon the Panga silhouette. Boom! Green Hat punched out and collided with the Panga silhouette's right hand. A terrifying shockwave spread out, and everything within a radius of a few hundred miles was turned into ruins. Seeing this, the experts of the Sorcerer God City were all scared to death. They struggled to leave the city. Zhuowen and Green Hat's attacks were becoming more and more terrifying. They wanted to destroy the entire Sorcerer God City. In the inner city, Sorcerer God Ya's expression turned ugly as he watched the buildings within a radius of a few hundred miles turn into ruins. Sorcerer God City was the #1 divine city in the primitive heaven domain. In order to build this city, countless precious materials had been used, making the city's defenses extremely sturdy. Ordinary energy couldn't break through the city at all. Even a supreme expert from the sky-piercing realm would find it difficult to destroy the city. Previously, when Zhuowen fought against dozens of sky-piercing realm experts, although the shock waves from the battle were terrifying, it didn't cause any large-scale destruction. On the other hand, Zhuowen had summoned Panga's shadow to fight Green Hat. With just a single strike, it had caused such terrifying destruction. It could be seen just how terrifying the destructive energy the two of them had mobilized was. Boom, boom. The battle between the Panga's silhouette and Green Hat became more and more intense. In just a short period of time, the entire outer city of Sorcerer God City was destroyed. Most of the experts of the Sorcerer God City had already left the city. Looking at the ruins of the outer city, they were all shocked. They couldn't believe that the #1 divine city of the primitive heaven domain had been destroyed to this extent. Moreover, they noticed that the battle between the Panga's silhouette and Green Hat was moving towards the inner city. Seeing this scene, Wu Xinya's face turned green. Although he was very confident in the defensive array of the inner city, the battle between Green Hat and the Panga silhouette was too terrifying. It made his heart palpitate, and he felt very guilty. Bang, bang, bang. Finally, The battle reached the sky above the inner city. Terrifying shockwaves spread out, causing the defensive array to tremble violently. Terrifying cracks appeared on it. Wu Xinya's face changed. He shouted, "Retreat! Retreat to the Sorcerer Clan's main hall. There's a teleportation array there. Use it to leave this place." Just as Wu Xinya finished speaking, he saw the incomparably huge Pangu silhouette stomp its foot. This stomp landed directly on the defensive array. This stomp was too terrifying. It was as if all the laws were destroyed by this stomp. Soon after, Wu Xinya was horrified to find that the defensive array above the inner city was filled with cracks. More and more cracks appeared, and they became denser. Finally, the defensive array collapsed. The Pangu silhouette's foot, which was like a pillar supporting the heavens, ruthlessly stomped down. Terrifying energy spread out, like snakes slithering in the air. Many Sorcerer Clan disciples were directly penetrated by these energy snakes. Blood mist burst out from their bodies, and their divine souls were destroyed. Wu Xinya roared. He didn't care about the injuries on his body. He took out his large saber and slashed out. Endless saber light burst out, destroying the energy snakes. When Wu Xinya was about to take out his large saber again to help the other Sorcerer Clan disciples repel the energy snakes, the Pangu silhouette's foot suddenly kicked over. Wu Xinya's face changed. He could only raise his large saber and block it in front of him. Crack! The large saber shattered, and Wu Xinya was sent flying by the kick. He crashed into the ground, and his entire body was covered in blood. He looked very miserable. "Rumble!" Zhuowen roared. He controlled the Panga silhouette and fiercely slapped at Green Hat's body. Green Hat didn't expect the Panga silhouette to suddenly explode with such terrifying energy. He didn't pay attention and was sent flying, landing on the ground. Chapter 33:88. Zhuowen turned his head with great difficulty and looked at the heavily injured Wu Xinya in the inner city. His eyes were filled with a terrifying killing intent. Wu Xinya also noticed the killing intent in Zhuowen's eyes. His heart jumped as he stomped on the ground with his right foot and retreated like an arrow. However, his expression was unsightly. "Wu Xinya Dai, you can't escape." Zhuowen roared. All of his blood essence was being sucked away. His body was becoming weaker and weaker, and his mind was becoming more and more blurry. However, he knew that he had to get rid of Wu Xinya. This was his best chance. If he missed it, he might not have another chance in the future. Panga's figure raised his right hand and fiercely slammed it down towards Wu Xinya. The palm wind whistled, and a terrifying energy ripple swept out. The entire space of Wu Xinya City froze because of this terrifying energy. Wu Xinya wanted to retreat, but he was suppressed by this pressure. His retreat speed was reduced to the speed of a turtle. Wu Xinya's eyes flashed with ruthlessness as he looked at the crystal-clear palm that was getting closer and closer. He knew that he would not be able to dodge this palm. Apart from taking the initiative to fight back, there was no other way. Wu Xinya gathered all of the energy in his body. His body emitted a dazzling light. He pushed his hands towards the sky. A blazing and powerful energy gathered in his palms and shot upwards. Rumble! The sparkling and translucent palm finally landed on Wu Xinya's body. The energy that Wu Xinya had pushed out with his hands suddenly collapsed and turned into dust. Then, Wu Xinya's hands began to crumble. Bang! Finally, the sparkling and translucent palm fiercely smashed into the ground. Wu Xinya's entire body was smashed into the ground by the energy of the palm. The powerful energy exploded, causing the ground to crack open. Terrifying abyss-like cracks appeared. Wu Xinya's figure completely disappeared. Even his aura was destroyed. In other words, Wu Xinya had completely disappeared under that palm. Not even his aura was left behind. All of the Sorcerer Tribe disciples in the inner city looked at this scene. They forgot to run for their lives as they stared blankly at the abyss. Holy Master, all of the Sorcerer Tribe disciples were crying out in grief. They couldn't feel Wu Shenya's aura. There was only one conclusion to this situation. Wu Shenya had completely fallen. As for the other foreign race experts who had already brought up Sorcerer God City, they all looked at this scene in shock. They were all cursing in their hearts. How strong was Longwen? The strength of the phantom he summoned was too terrifying. The holy sovereign of the sorcerer race, Wu Shenya, was actually slapped to death by a single palm. Brat, you've successfully angered me. How dare you kill someone right under my nose? Do you really think that I can't deal with you? Seeing that Wu Shenya was killed, Green Hat's face turned ugly. Just now, he was caught off guard and allowed Zhuowen to take advantage of the opening and force him to retreat. However, he was not injured at all. Green Hat walked forward step by step. His footsteps became faster and faster. Every step was like a great bell. The sound was loud and clear. It was as if the sky was falling and the earth was splitting. Boom. When Green Hat took the last step, he shot out like an arrow leaving the bowstring, breaking the air and arriving in front of Pan Gu's shadow in an instant. With difficulty, Zhuowen controlled the Pan Gu silhouette to launch a punch. Boom. Green Hat sneered and punched out. When the two fists collided, the Pan Gu silhouette's right fist was destroyed. Green Hat followed up with another attack. His right fist was wrapped in a thunderous force. Terrifying energy exploded, and the Pan Gu silhouette's right arm exploded. The Pan Gu silhouette retreated continuously. Its huge body was unstable and swaying. Green Hat landed on the ground. His legs bounced, and he shot out again. This time, his target was the Pan Gu silhouette's chest, where Zhuowen was. He knew that the lifeline of the Pan Gu silhouette was Zhuowen. As long as he could capture Zhuowen, the Pan Gu silhouette would naturally collapse. At this moment, Zhuowen's body was in a terrible state. Too much of his blood essence had been absorbed, and his mind was becoming increasingly muddled. He knew that he was in trouble. If he didn't retreat now, he wouldn't be able to. He also saw that Green Hat was getting closer and closer. His face became extremely ugly. Zhuowen, surrender obediently. This should be your final trump card. You have indeed exceeded my expectations. But in the face of absolute strength, no matter how many tricks you have, it is useless. Die. Green Hat smiled proudly. He was already close to the Pan Gu silhouette's chest. His right hand reached out and grabbed Zhuowen, intending to pull him out. Zhuowen held the blood-red token in his hand. Seeing that Green Hat was getting closer and closer, his eyes flashed with ruthlessness. Green Hat, do you really want the Pan Gu banner so much? Zhuowen asked. Kiki, who doesn't want such a good thing? Have you thought it through? Although Green Hat said this, his speed was not slow. His right hand formed a claw and was about to reach into the Pan Gu silhouette's chest. I want to say that I don't have the Pan Gu banner, and my life, you can forget about it. After saying this, Zhuowen activated the blood-red token in his right hand. A blood-red light instantly enveloped him. Green Hat saw through Zhuowen's intention, and his expression changed greatly. His speed suddenly increased. Unfortunately, the blood-red light's teleportation speed was too fast. It wrapped around Zhuowen and disappeared in an instant. However, before Zhuowen disappeared, he dripped a drop of blood on the Pan Gu silhouette. At this moment, Green Hat had completely broken into the Pan Gu silhouette's chest. He saw the drop of blood fall between the Pan Gu silhouette's eyebrows with his own eyes. Then he saw the energy in the Pan Gu silhouette suddenly become violent. Then, this energy became more and more terrifying and expanded. Green Hat's pupils shrank into needles. He shouted and hurriedly retreated. Unfortunately, he retreated too late. The Pan-Goose silhouette self-destructed. That terrifying explosion was like the eruption of a blazing sun. Light overflowed in all directions, rushing to the heavens and sweeping the earth, illuminating the entire sky. Green Hat was enveloped by the explosion and did not even have the chance to retreat. The area of the explosion was too terrifying. In an instant, it engulfed the inner city. The disciples of the sorcerer tribe, who did not have time to leave through the teleportation formation in the sorcerer tribe's main hall, were all turned into dust. Even the magnificent sorcerer tribe's main hall collapsed into a pile of ruins. Outside the sorcerer god city, many experts of the foreign tribes were frightened when they saw the explosion. They quickly retreated, trying to get as far away from the sorcerer god city as possible. They could see that the explosion was terrifying and the area of effect was very wide. Now, with the sorcerer god city as the center, it was spreading in all directions. In the end, the explosion enveloped the entire sorcerer god city. Even tens of thousands of miles away from the sorcerer god city were engulfed. Chapter 33:89. Famous in the untainted land, the explosion did not last long. It lasted for more than an hour. When the explosion gradually subsided, the entire sorcerer god city had disappeared. It was replaced by a deep and endless abyss. Moreover, the space around the sorcerer god city had become a dangerous zone, filled with endless sharp and brutal energy. If an ordinary sovereign of heaven ascension were to enter this abyss of ruins, it was very likely that they would be blasted black and blue by the tyrannical energy. It was even possible that they would die here. It's too terrifying. That draconic room is actually able to create such a huge commotion. The Moon Wolf clan's patriarch, Itaiha, muttered to himself in disbelief. The sorcerer tribe is finished. Sorcerer god city has been destroyed. Even Holy Master Wu Shinya has died. The giant turtle tribe leader sighed softly. Tribe leader, do you think Longwen died when he self-destructed? Qian Ping, who was beside Itaiha, asked with a complicated look in her beautiful eyes. The energy produced by the self-destruction of Panga's shadow was extremely terrifying. She knew that even if Longwen had the ability to reach heaven, it was impossible for him to survive. I'm not sure either. Longwen should have died. Even the mysterious expert could not have survived such an explosion. Itaiha hesitated for a while before answering. Hearing this, Qian Ping's beautiful eyes dimmed. Her feelings towards Longwen were extremely complicated. When she had first met Longwen, she had called him a country bumpkin and looked down on him. However, Zhuowen's rise had changed her view of Longwen time and time again. In the end, it had caused such a huge commotion. For some reason, Qian Ping's feelings towards Zhuowen had become contradictory and complicated. When she saw Zhuowen die in front of her, she felt a little pity and a little reluctance. The rest of the foreign race experts were also discussing the battle. They felt that everything was too unbelievable. The sorcerer tribe was razed to the ground just like that. This would become the biggest news in the history of the untainted heaven domain. Look, there's movement in the abyss. Suddenly, a sharp-eyed foreign expert pointed at the abyss in front of them and yelled. His voice immediately attracted the attention of all the foreign race experts. Their gazes fell on the abyss in front of them. There, a vague figure slowly appeared in their line of sight. This figure stood in the void of the abyss, and the raging energy around him did not affect him at all when it slammed into him. When this figure finally walked out of the abyss, all the foreign race experts gasped and involuntarily stepped back. He's not dead. How strong? Yi Taiha felt incredulous. He stared at the figure that appeared in everyone's eyes. This figure was Green Hat. At this moment, Green Hat's shriveled body was dripping with green blood. The blood was sparkling and translucent. If it wasn't for the fact that it came from Green Hat's body, one would think that it was nectar. It emitted a brilliant green light and contained an inconceivably terrifying energy. Hat Green Hat's was green. Hat Green Hat. Green Hat was Green Hat Green Studio. Zhuowen what you Zhuowen time studio. It was no wonder that he was in no hurry to leave the sorcerer god city. The next time I meet you, I won't be courteous to you anymore. I'll kill you and take the Panga banner from you. Green Hat's face was gloomy as he muttered to himself. He was indeed powerful, but the energy generated by the explosion of Pangu's silhouette was way too terrifying. No matter how powerful he was still injured, and the injury wasn't light. If he wanted to recover from his injuries, he would have to pay a high price and spend a lot of time. Green Hat naturally saw the many foreign experts in the distance, but he didn't say anything. Instead, he took out a flying divine artifact and left. Many foreign race experts could only watch as Green Hat left. Although they could see that Green Hat's injury was very serious, no one had the slightest thought about it. This was a genuine, half-step, heaven-crushing cultivator. Even though he was severely wounded, he was still not someone they could casually provoke. The foreign race experts did not linger around the ruins of the sorcerer god city for long before they left one after another. As for the name Long One, it began to spread throughout the entire great desolate heaven realm through word of mouth. As a result, most of the foreign races in the primitive heavenly realm learned that there was a bold prodigy from a small race named Long One. Not only did he kill Wu Xingyuan, the prodigy of the sorcerer tribe, as well as prodigies from other large races, but he also killed several other prodigies. Long One had even killed several tens of patriarchs, including the patriarchs of the Phoenix clan, the Corpse clan, the Merfolk clan, the Dragon clan, and the Black Tiger clan. The most shocking thing was that Long One had also killed the high priest of the sorcerer tribe, Wu Wuxian, and Holy Master Wu Xinya. He had even razed Sorcerer God City to the ground. Once this news spread, it spread like wildfire throughout the entire primitive heavenly realm. Almost all the races in the primitive heavenly realm knew about Long Wen's deeds. Moreover, Long Wen's deeds became more and more miraculous as they spread. In the end, even Long Wen was deified. Many foreign races felt pity for Long Wen because it was said that a mysterious elite who was suspected to be a half-step heaven-crushing cultivator had battled with Long Wen and forced him to self-detonate. Many foreign races felt that it was a pity that Long Wen had died just like that. They all knew that Long Wen had not cultivated for long and was a genius of a small race. His future potential was limitless. Now that he had died, they felt that it was a pity. Of course, Zhuowen was not dead. Those who had witnessed it with their own eyes had been too far away from the battle in Magus God City. When Zhuowen had been teleported away by the blood-colored token, they had not seen it clearly. They had only thought that Zhuowen, who had been enveloped by the blood-colored light, had been turned into a bloody mist by Green Hat. The only person who knew that Zhuowen was not dead was Green Hat, who was recuperating somewhere. In the main city of the Devouring Clan, Yu Lu sat on the main seat. Only Yu Lu and the young genius of the Devouring Clan, Secludeless, were in the hall. Yu Lu and Secludeless watched the image in front of them in silence. At the end of the image, when Sorcerer God City collapsed, the image disappeared. It's Lord Zhuowen. He must be Lord Zhuowen. Secludeless clenched his fists and said with certainty, "Yeah, he's Lord Zhuowen." Back then, when Milord used his alias, he told me that his alias was Long One. Lord Zhuowen had put a lot of thought into it. he used his alias to avoid dragging our devouring clan down. Yu Lu sighed. When Yu Lu had seen the image of the great battle in Sorcerer God City, he was stunned. He had never thought that Zhuowen could be that intimidating. He had killed so many experts of the sky-piercing realm in Sorcerer God City. In the end, he had even killed the High Priest and the Saint Master of the Sorcerer clan. Such a magnificent feat had never happened before. Since ancient times, the devouring clan had been glorious. They had been one of the 10 great clans in the primitive heavenly territory. However, there had never been a monstrous genius like Zhuowen who could stir up a storm in the sorcerer tribe's Sorcerer God City and even raze the city to the ground in the end. He was the first person in history. Thinking of this, Yu Lu's heart was ignited with hot blood that had not appeared for a long time. There was no other reason. It was because the legendary Earth Dragon Rune was a disciple of their shaman tribe. Chapter 3390. Wu Luyu Lu sighed, looking at Secluded. Secluded, your innate endowment is the strongest in our devouring clan. As long as you cultivate harder, I'm afraid you can catch up with Master Zhuowen in the future. At that time, the entire great desolate heavenly domain will be shaken because of you. However, you have to remember that you can't disclose Master Zhuowen's story. Otherwise, the entire devouring clan will be implicated. Yu Lu's voice was strict. He knew that Secluded had a blind admiration for Zhuowen. Zhuowen's death was a big blow to Secluded. Sure, Yen was afraid that Secluded would do something stupid that would bring a big disaster to the devouring clan. Secluded clasped his hands, his eyes resolute. Patriarch, don't worry. Secluded won't tell others about this. Before I'm strong enough, I won't show off and bring disaster to the clan. I will cultivate harder. I will become the real expert of the great, desolate, heavenly domain. At that time, I will bring the devouring clan back to the peak. At that time, I will clear Master Zhuowen's name. I will make his name go down in history. Yu Lu was happy to see Secluded's resolute face. He nodded. Yeah, as long as you cultivate hard, our devouring clan will advance further. While the untainted heaven realm was in an uproar because of Zhuowen in a huge and luxurious palace in the mysterious heaven accessing place, a purple-skinned man with purple hair crushed the communication jade charm in his hand. A powerful aura suddenly spread out. The maids who were serving around him were sent flying with a groan by this terrifying aura. They crawled up from the ground and knelt in front of the man, begging for forgiveness. You guys can leave. I'm not angry because of you, said the purple-haired man coldly. The maids exchanged looks. They didn't dare to disobey the purple-haired man's order, so they left. Not long after the maids had left, loud footsteps arose. From the aisle in front of the main hall, a beautiful woman with an enchanting figure and peerless beauty slowly walked over. Taiji, what happened to you? Why are you so angry? It's been so many years, and I've never seen you lose your temper like this. This enchanting beauty slowly walked to the side of the purple-haired man with sexy cat-like steps. Her large breasts slowly leaned against the purple-haired man's arm, squeezing out a very seductive arc, the witch god city was razed to the ground. The current Holy Master Wu Shinya, the High Priest Wu Wuxian, and most of the witch clan's members were killed. Do you think I can stay calm? Said the purple-haired man's face darkened. The beautiful woman, who was nestled beside the purple-haired man, trembled the moment she heard the news. Her beautiful eyes narrowed into needles. Really? The woman couldn't stay calm. Do you think it's a lie? Is the god God? Moreover, this matter has spread throughout the entire untainted heaven realm. I think the human race has also received the news. Many people are waiting to laugh at our wizard tower. The purple-haired man's expression was gloomy and his voice was filled with irritation. That's a big deal. Limitless, who did it? How dare they? Wait, the inner city of the Witch God City has an extremely powerful defensive formation. Even if a master of heaven ascension were to break in, he would still die. In the primitive heavenly realm, only a half-step heaven ascension cultivator can do that. However, half-step heaven ascension cultivators are all in the heavenly secret realm. Entering and exiting the heavenly secret realm is recorded, and they are under the supervision of other cultivators. Also, it's not like they don't know the relationship between the Witch Clan and the Witch Clan. How could they risk offending us and go to the Witch Clan to cause trouble? Said the woman seriously. That's where the problem lies. It's said that there were two people causing trouble in the Witch Clan. One of them was a genius from a small clan called Longwen, and the other was a mysterious person who looked like a dried corpse. Longwen's cultivation wasn't that strong, but his physical body was extremely terrifying. In the end, he even used a powerful trump card and temporarily unleashed the strength of a half-step heaven ascension cultivator. But because of that, he self-destructed and died together with the green-haired corpse. According to the news, Longwen died, but the green-haired corpse was unharmed and left the ruins of the Witch God City. No one knows where it went. When the purple-haired man mentioned the green-haired corpse, his face suddenly became very serious. What? The powerful energy that destroyed the Witch God City was at least the full blow of the peak of the first blight. The green-haired corpse faced it head-on and didn't die. It even had the strength to leave, said the woman in disbelief. Yes, I suspect that the green-haired corpse has at least passed the second blight of the 5 blights of celestial beings, and it's not a cultivator in the heavenly secret realm, said the purple-haired man with a frown. Impossible, whether it's the Xianmi heavenly domain or the untainted heavenly domain. As long as someone's cultivation broke through to the master of the heavenly secret realm, it would immediately be recorded by the Tianshu Pavilion in the heavenly secret realm. The green-haired corpse was at the second blight, so it would definitely be recorded. How could it be? Said the woman in shock. I've checked, and the green-haired corpse was indeed not found in the Tianshu Pavilion. Even Longwen was not found. Longwen shouldn't be a master of the heavenly secret realm, but the green-haired corpse is very strange. It's very likely that it came from another heavenly domain, said the purple-haired man in a low voice. No way. Over the years, the heavenly energy has become thinner and thinner because of the chaos. Whether it's the untainted heavenly domain or the Xianmi heavenly domain, the number of cultivators who can become masters of the heavenly secret realm has also decreased, and it's been a long time since I've seen someone who can become a half-step master of the heavenly secret realm. Now, the half-step master of the heavenly secret realm has successfully become a half-step master of the heavenly secret realm. It's impossible in other heavenly domains, said the woman in disbelief. That's not impossible. If this person became a half-step master of the heavenly secret realm a long time ago, and then hid somewhere outside the untainted heavenly domain and the Xianmi heavenly domain until recently, then it makes sense, said the purple-haired man with bright eyes. The woman nodded. The purple-haired man's guess was very likely. That green-haired corpse probably has a big secret. We have to find that guy. Maybe we can find something very useful. Xiangjuan, take my identity token and ask Wu Jiyan and Wu Jimiao to return to the sorcerer tribe and rebuild the Witch God City. Then, go and investigate the green-haired corpse. The purple-haired man said coldly as he handed the identity token to the woman. Although the woman was very reluctant, she could not bear the purple-haired man's cold gaze. She could only take the token and leave the hall. Chapter 3391. Circulation Zhuan felt that the world was spinning and waves of dizziness came from his head. He seemed to be passing through a passage at a high speed. Bang! A dull sound of collision was heard. Zhuowen felt that his back was hit hard, and there was a heart-wrenching pain. He could not help but spit out a mouthful of blood. Zhuowen struggled to get up. He quickly took out many healing elixirs from the macro world and swallowed them all. Only then did he manage to suppress the terrible injuries in his body. However, even so, the injuries in his body were still terrible. It was extremely difficult for him to move. Zhuowen summoned the Thunderfire Sword, the Sacrificial Death Sword, and the Blood Fairy Sword. 3 sword lights surrounded him, forming a strong defense. Only then did he dare to relax. After all, the place he was teleported to was an unfamiliar place. Who knew if there would be any danger? Naturally, he was taking precautions. Boy, you've gained a lot this time. How many divine weapons have you gotten? You don't have any use for them. Why don't you leave them to us? Blackie sat upright on the hilt of the Thunderfire Sword, his eyes shining as he looked at Zhuowen. His gaze was like a lustful wolf looking at a peerless beauty. It was as strange as it could be, causing Zhuowen to have goosebumps all over his body. Xiaohe and the others were weapon cultivators. If they wanted to advance quickly, they needed precious refining materials or high-level divine weapons. Moreover, Zhuowen had collected those divine artifacts for Blackie and the others. Therefore, he readily agreed to Blackie's request, intending to hand over the divine artifacts he had subdued to them. Little Black was wild with joy and said a few words of flattery, which was a rare occurrence. Zhuowen no longer paid attention to Xiaohe. His eyes fell on the surrounding environment. He discovered that the place he was in was a sunken area within a mountain range. What made Zhuowen frown was that the surrounding mountains were very unusual. This was because these mountains were the color of the starry sky and were shining with starlight. Zhuowen's divine sense began extending outwards. Very quickly, it enveloped the entire mountain range. He was shocked because from the perspective of his divine telekinesis, this huge mountain looked like the shape of a giant if he looked down from the sky. It was as if a giant was lying on his back in this space and finally turned into this mountain range. This aura, it's so familiar. Zhuowen's divine thought kept hovering above the mountain range. He felt a familiar feeling in the surroundings. Moreover, the blood in his body began to boil the instant he entered the mountain range. It was like boiling water, surging and churning endlessly. It was as if something was summoning the blood in his body. This is definitely where Panga's translation Zhuowen guessed and was pleasantly surprised. He could not be wrong about the resonance of the bloodline. After all, he had received part of Panga's inheritance and cultivated the sacred body of Pangu. He was all too familiar with Panga's aura. Zhuowen's divine thought kept wandering around the mountain range. He found that this mountain range was very vast, as if there was no end to it. He also found that the space where the mountain range was located was very strange. It was similar to the starry sky, but it seemed to be more wonderful than the starry sky. It was another space beyond the starry sky, and it was far more advanced than the worlds he had been in before. What is that? Zhuowen's divine thought followed the direction of the mountain range and continued to derive. Finally, he found something strange in the distance, which was the second half of the mountain range. In the second half of the mountain range, he saw that the mountain range was pitch black. There was no starlight shining, as if it was a broken and dead starry sky. Moreover, Zhuowen also felt a very strong aura of death in the second half of the mountain range. This aura of death was unusual. It was not the kind of aura of decay and destruction, but an aura of nirvana and nothingness. This aura made Zhuowen feel very frightened, and it even gave him a strong feeling of dread. nirvana, and nothingness was a state of nothingness. Whether it was matter or feeling, there was nothing. Being in such an environment, Zhuowen even felt confused as to whether he was alive or not. This feeling was simply too unbearable. It gave Zhuowen the urge to commit suicide. No, Zhuowen suddenly woke up and quickly withdrew his divine thought. His forehead was full of cold sweat. What is the second half of the mountain range? Why does it give me such a feeling? Zhuowen was horrified. He felt that the second half of the mountain range had a power that was far superior to him and the starry sky. That power was very strange. It silently invaded his divine soul, as if it could deprive him of his consciousness and control him. It made him feel like he had nothing to live for and started to commit suicide. Zhuowen had a hunch that the power in the second half of the mountain range was very terrifying. He could not enter that place casually. Moreover, Zhuowen had a feeling that the strange power in the second half of the mountain range was like a virus that was eroding the mountain range. This feeling was very strange, but it suddenly appeared in his mind. Let's figure out this place first. Zhuowen sighed softly. His injuries were too serious. Whether it was to figure out the situation here or to explore the truth of the place where Pangu fell, he had to recover from his injuries first. Zhuowen began to set up defensive formations and trap and kill formations around him. It took him a whole day to set up a sufficiently powerful and complicated formation before he stopped. As for the Thunder Fire Sword, the Sacrificial Death Sword, and the Blood Immortal Sword, he put them into the macro world. He also gave the divine weapons he had obtained this time to Xiaohe for him to distribute and cultivate. Xiaohe's progress was very obvious. He had already evolved to the middle stage of the Heaven Ascension realm. As long as he absorbed these divine weapons, Zhuowen felt that Xiaohe would have no problem evolving to the late stage of the Heaven Ascension realm. Meanwhile, Crepe Myrtle Star was still healing in the macro world. His injuries were more serious than Zhuowen's. He was almost half dead. Moreover, his recovery ability was much worse than Zhuowen's. If he wanted to completely recover, it would be much slower than Zhuowen's. Zhuowen looked at his almost broken body and shook his head with a wry smile. He knew that he would need a lot of resources and time to completely recover from his injuries. He was not afraid of resources. After all, he had killed so many experts of the Heaven Ascension realm. He did not let go of any of their spiritual rings. The resources he had probably surpassed the resources of any tribe in the untainted heavenly realm. He was mainly worried that it would take him a long time to completely recover. He estimated that it would take at least a month for him to completely recover. During the time Zhuowen was healing, not only had Long Wen's name spread throughout the untainted heavenly realm, but even the Xianmi heavenly realm had learned that something big had happened to the wizard tribe in the untainted heavenly realm. They knew that a genius from a small tribe named Long Wen had single-handedly killed the clan leaders of 5 of the top 10 tribes. He had also killed dozens of clan leaders, including the Saint Master and the High Priest of the Wizard tribe. Chapter 3392. Sakyamuni planned Xianmi Heavenly Region, Host Region, 10 Extremes in Corpse Sect. 2 young disciples stood at the entrance of the Grand Sect Master's Hall, trembling with fear. They lowered their eyes and waited for the master of the hall to summon them. Zhao Su, why do you think the sect master summoned us? One of the young men in white trembled as he asked the young man in blue beside him. The young man in blue, Zhao Su, was trembling even more than the young man in white. I don't know either, but recently rumors have been spreading in the sect. They say that the senior and junior brothers who were summoned into the main hall by the sect master have never appeared in the sect again. It seems that they have mysteriously disappeared. The blue-clothed youth trembled as he spoke. I heard that too. It is said that the disciples who were summoned into the sect master's hall have all died. I don't know if this rumor is true or not. The young man in white wanted to cry. I hope it is false. Ever since Sakyamuni ascended to the position of sect master, her temperament has changed greatly. Most of the time, she is cooped up in the hall. I don't know what she is doing. I hope the sect master is not as the rumors say. The young man in blue smiled bitterly. Creak. The door of the hall opened, and a middle-aged man with a gloomy expression walked out. He sized up the young man in white and the young man in blue and said coldly, "Why are the two of you still dawdling at the door? Go in. The sect master is about to summon you." The young man in blue and the young man in white hurriedly lowered their eyes and nodded obediently. Then they hurriedly entered the hall. However, their bodies trembled even more violently, and their footsteps were weak. The two of them entered the depths of the main hall and discovered that it was pitch black and eerie. This was the first time the two of them had entered the patriarch's main hall. Seeing the scene inside the main hall, they recalled some of the rumors in the sect, and their faces turned deathly pale. Soon, they saw the figure sitting on the throne in the depths of the hall. Sakura was wearing a blood-colored shawl. His pair of golden eyes emitted a golden glow in the dark hall, as though he was a majestic lion sizing up its prey that was about to hunt. When the young man in white and the young man in blue saw Sakyamuni's golden eyes, their bodies trembled, and they involuntarily knelt on the ground, trembling. "Greetings, sect master," the two of them said respectfully. "Recently, there seems to be a rumor spreading in the Xianmi heavenly region. It seems to be about Long One. Do you know about it?" Sakyamuni sat in the sect master's hall, looking down at the two trembling youths. His voice was calm but had an unquestionable majesty. When the name Long One was mentioned, Sakura's gaze was somewhat strange. If he remembered correctly, Zhuowen had also used the alias of Long One back then. Therefore, when he heard Long Wen's name, he was very interested. However, he had basically been in seclusion during this period of time, so the news was very limited. Now, he asked someone to invite a disciple who was more well-informed to come forward and talk to him. When the white-clothed youth and the blue-clothed youth saw that Di Shurtian had summoned them in order to understand this kind of news, they both let out a sigh of relief and began to explain the news that had come from the great desolate heaven realm. After Sakura heard this, his eyes revealed a look of surprise. According to the two of them, Long One had become a godlike figure. He had participated in the Sorcerer Tribe's Sorcerer Song Conference alone and suppressed all the geniuses of the 10 great clans. Even Wu Xingyuan, the #1 genius of the Sorcerer Tribe, had been killed by him. What shocked him even more was that Long One had killed dozens of Masters of Heaven Pass, including 5 at the advanced stage of Heaven Pass. In addition, the High Priest and Sacred Master of the Sorcerer Tribe had been killed. The High Priest was a divine master of Heaven Pass, and the Sacred Master was even more terrifying. He was at the peak of the Master of Heaven Pass. Even such an expert was killed. Just how perverted was this Long One? The Sorcerer God City has been destroyed. Long One is really bold. Did he almost destroy the Sorcerer Tribe? Sakyamuni stood up and frowned. He felt that something was wrong and wondered if Long One was Zhuowen of the human tribe. Although the young man in white and the young man in blue both said that Long One was a genius from a small tribe in the primitive heaven realm and was definitely not human, he still had a bad feeling and worry. He was afraid that Long One was Zhuowen in disguise. If that was really the case, then he was really a little scared. After he awakened his powerful talent and devoured the sect master of the 10 Extremes Een Corp sect, his strength rose very quickly. Now, he was already at the intermediate stage of Heaven Pass and was moving towards the advanced stage of Heaven Pass. If that Long One was really Zhuowen, even if his strength was already strong enough now, compared to the Long One in the rumors, he was still far away. Then wouldn't his situation be dangerous? Sect Master. In the end, a mysterious elite seemed to have appeared and fought with Long One. In the end, he forced Long One to self-detonate and die, and that mysterious elite left with serious injuries. That mysterious elite was suspected to be a half-step heaven-crushing elite, and his strength was ridiculously strong. The young man in white hurriedly said, "Oh, that Long One self-detonated and died." Sakyamana's eyes lit up, and he asked again, "Yes, this is absolutely true, and there is also the leaked battle video from the primitive heaven realm. Coincidentally, I have a copy." The young man in white was very tactful, and he took out a crystal ball from his spirit ring and handed it over to Sakyamuni with both hands. Sakyamuni looked carefully a few times, and only after seeing that image of Pangu had indeed self-detonated did he feel completely at ease. But after watching the battle in the video, his heart could not calm down. Only now did he realize that he was actually a frog at the bottom of a well. There was actually such a terrifying elite in this galaxy. Sakyamuni waved his hand and said, "You too can leave." The young man in white and the young man in blue both sighed lightly, and they both cupped their hands and retreated. However, they had just walked to the entrance of the palace when two blade lights flashed past, and then a bloody hole appeared between their brows, and they fell straight to the ground. At the entrance of the palace, a figure slowly walked out. It was none other than the middle-aged man who had urged the two of them to enter the palace. The middle-aged man glanced at the two of them and said to a hidden corner, "Take these two to the blood pool." As soon as the middle-aged man finished speaking, two figures rushed out from the shadows and dragged the corpses of the white-clothed and blue-clothed young men away. The middle-aged man walked directly to the depths of the palace and knelt before Sakyamuni and said, "Sect Master, those two have been taken care of." Thank you for your hard work. Have you found the Ryuka that I asked you to investigate?" Sakyamuni asked calmly from his seat. "I have. The Ryuka has taken over the Huangji family's territory, and it is said that they are developing quite well. Sect Master, destroying the Ryuka is as easy as moving a finger. I can help you destroy the Ryuka," the middle-aged man said solemnly. "No rush. Continue to send people to seal off the Ryuka's territory and cut off all contact with the Ryuka. Isolate the Ryuka first. I want the Ryuka to slowly feel the fear of isolation. Once I take over the other Dao Palace factions in the host region, I will let the flowers of the dead bloom all over the host region. When the time comes, the entire host region will submit to me. I will personally go to the Ryuka and execute the Ryuka one by one." Chapter 33, 93. Pangu splits the heavens. Ruin slowly opened his eyes. His face was no longer pale, but ruddy. It took him a whole month to recover from his injuries. With the help of a large number of healing pills and the powerful recovery ability of the Pangu's sacred body, he finally recovered from his injuries. From this, it could be seen that the injuries he suffered this time were really terrible. Moreover, Zhuowen also found that the level of the Pangu's sacred body he cultivated was getting higher and higher. Although he was stronger, it was harder for him to be injured. However, once his physical body was injured, it would require a lot of resources to recover. After all, the level of energy in his physical body was too high. If the quality was not enough, he would need quantity to make up for it. Zhuowen stood up and put away the restriction formation around him. He looked around the mountain range and confirmed that this was the place where Pangu fell. Zhuowen closed his eyes and began to use his Pangu inheritance to resonate with the mountain range so that he could find the remaining Pangu inheritance. Soon, the blood in Zhuowen's body boiled again. He sensed that somewhere in the depths of the mountain range, there was a deep cave where he felt the source of the resonance. Zhuo took a deep breath and suppressed the excitement in his heart. His right foot pushed off the ground and shot out like an arrow leaving the bow, heading towards the cave dwelling that he had sensed. Soon, Zhuo arrived near the cave. Zhuo found that the mountain range where the cave was located was very close to the back half of the mountain range. Zhuo could not help but think of the strange power in the back half of the mountain range. His eyes were full of fear. That power was nirvana and nothingness. It could make me fall into a state of chaos and ignorance in an instant. At that time, if his divine thoughts were not strong enough and he was only close to that power instead of going deep, his divine soul would have become chaotic. Zhuo stood in front of the mountain in front of him. His eyes became very serious because he found that the mountain in front of him was the center of the entire mountain range. In other words, half of the mountain was filled with the power of nirvana and nothingness. The mountain was deep and dark, and the laws were chaotic and disorderly. The other half was like a starry sky that flickered with specks of starlight and was filled with exuberant vitality. Zhuo smiled bitterly. He did not expect the location of the cave to be so coincidental. Although the location of the cave was in the front half of the mountain range, Zhuo was very clear how powerful the power of nirvana and nothingness was. Even if he did not directly touch it, he would still be affected. After hesitating for a while, Zhuo decided to enter the cave and try it. The moment he stepped into the cave, he immediately smelled the aura of emptiness and destruction. Then his 5 senses started to fade away. Zhuo's face. But he did not retreat. He was. Zhuo, as he was like a bolt of black lightning. Black is. Zhuo's face was ugly. He started to circulate his soul. Then he found the soul sword intent hidden in his soul. It suddenly released a powerful and fierce sword intent to resist the power of nirvana that was constantly entering his soul. For a time, the speed at which Zhuo's 5 senses were fading away was greatly reduced, but it could not be completely cured. Zhuo knew that he could not stay in the cave for too long. Otherwise, even if the soul sword intent could resist a little, he would not be able to hold on for too long. Finally, Zhuo arrived at the deepest part of the cave. He had reached his limit, and his consciousness became blurry. The endless power of nirvana and nothingness flowed from between his eyebrows like a tide. It poured into the depths of his sea of consciousness, occupying and filling his sea of consciousness. Plop! Zhuo fell to the ground. Before he lost consciousness, he saw light flickering in the depths of the cave. However, his eyelids were too heavy. He did not see clearly what the light was, so his eyes fell into darkness. After an unknown period of time, light began to appear in the darkness in front of Zhuo. The silence at the beginning was completely broken by this light. Zhuo's eyes narrowed from the stimulation of this light. Then he saw an incomparably huge and imposing figure at the source of the light. Zhuo was not unfamiliar with this figure. It was Pangu. Back when he received the inheritance, he had seen Pangu. However, Pangu's figure was very blurry in his eyes. But now, Pangu's figure was clearer than ever. Pangu was holding the sky-splitting axe. The Taiji diagram was above his head, and the mark of the Pangu banner appeared between his eyebrows. A pair of bright and spirited eyes seemed to be able to see through the ages and penetrate the heavens and the earth. I want to open up this starry sky, break open this vault of heaven, break free from your shackles, and truly be free. You can't stop me, and these chaos beasts are a joke in front of me. Pangu roared. He held the sky-splitting axe and slashed. Suddenly, the darkness surrounding him was split open. Moreover, after the darkness was split open, it actually let out a horrifying wail. Zhuo took a closer look and realized that the darkness surrounding Pangu was actually wriggling as if it was alive. This is not true darkness, but chaos. The moment Pangu split open the darkness, he finally saw the true appearance of the darkness. He saw that the deep and pitch-black darkness was actually a strange creature. These strange creatures were shaped like dogs. They had long fur and 4 legs. They had eyes but could not see. They could not walk. They had 2 ears but could not hear. They had stomachs but no internal organs. They had intestines but straight, and food passed through them. Zhuowen watched Pangu kill the chaos beasts with his axe. His gaze turned serious. This was because he realized that he could sense the aura of emptiness and destruction from the latter half of the mountain range where Pangu had fallen. This similar aura made Zhuowen's expression turn ugly. This was because he had a bad guess. There were many chaos beasts. The entire starry sky was filled with chaos beasts. They kept attacking Pangu. However, Pangu was even more terrifying. Every time he swung his axe, it was as if the heavens were falling and the earth was splitting. Countless chaos beasts were turning into dust. Moreover, the powerful force kept expanding the starry sky. However, there were too many chaos beasts. Moreover, if one attack did not completely destroy them, they would immediately return to their peak. This was because the chaos beasts' power came from the darkness. As long as the darkness was not destroyed, their power would be endless. The battle lasted for a very, very long time. It was so long that Zhuowen could not remember how many years, decades, or centuries it had been. Finally, Pangu split open all the darkness and destroyed most of the chaos beasts. The rest of the chaos beasts were sealed by Pangu. However, Pangu paid a huge price. His body was covered in wounds, and his eyes were filled with fatigue. Chapter 3394. Axe hilt, he slowly raised his head and looked into the sky. A self-deprecating smile appeared on his face as he muttered to himself, "So that's how it is. How ruthless of you to use the bloodline of the Pangu clan to nurture this starry sky. How hateful. I only realized it now. How hateful. My power has been exhausted by the chaotic beasts, and I don't have the strength to break through to the heaven-crushing stage anymore. I'm already a toy for you, but I refuse to accept this." Then Zhuowen saw the same scene that he had seen when he had first obtained the Pangu banner. Pangu roared into the sky as he summoned the heaven-splitting axe and slammed it into the heavens. Then the heaven-splitting axe was crushed in the heavens as a gigantic invisible hand came crashing down and completely pulverized Pangu. Before Pangu's death, he had said, "If the heavens want me dead, I'll die. If I don't want to die, I can only crush the heavens." After Pangu's death, this galaxy began to be nurtured. Moreover, due to the nourishment of Pangu's energy, Zhuowen discovered that the galaxy began to transform from deathly stillness to vitality. The galaxy also began to become rich and colorful, and because too much of Pangu's blood had been spilled in this place where Pangu had fallen, it formed a gigantic mountain range that stretched endlessly. And this mountain range was located at the very edge of the galaxy, and it was like a parasite that was constantly absorbing the energy of the galaxy. Zhuowen immediately came to his senses. In this image, he saw that Pangu hadn't destroyed all of the chaotic beasts. Instead, a small portion of them had been sealed, and the place where they had been sealed just so happened to be here. Zhuowen thought about the strange energy at the back of the mountain range. The first thing that came to his mind was that the sealed chaos beast was most likely inside the mountain range. Although the chaotic beasts were very weak in front of Pangu, Zhuowen knew that this was only relative to Pangu. Those chaotic beasts were all at the half-step heaven-crushing stage. Moreover, there were so many Earth chaotic beasts. If they really appeared in this galaxy, It would definitely be an unprecedented disaster for the beings in this galaxy. With this thought in mind, Zhuowen's expression became very grave, and his mood was very bad. At this moment, the image before his eyes had already disappeared, and he slowly woke up. He found that he was still in the depths of the cave, but he was no longer affected by the strange void, nirvana energy. Zhuowen stood up, and only now did he notice that there was a rather upright stone table standing in the depths of the abode. On top of the stone table, there was a crystal that was emitting light. What surprised Zhuowen the most was that the crystal was actually beating like a heart. It was because of this crystal's radiance that the surrounding chaotic energy was blocked. Zhuowen carefully extended his right hand and touched the floating crystal. He found that the crystal did not resist him. Moreover, he found that the moment his palm touched the crystal, he felt Pangu Saint's blood boiling. He knew that the remaining inheritance of Pangu was likely to be in this crystal. Suppressing the excitement in his heart, Zhuowen quickly left the cave with the crystal. When he finally walked out of the cave, his expression suddenly changed. This was because he found that the mountain in the middle of the mountain range in front of him had been instantly eroded by the chaotic energy and had turned completely black. Zhuowen's expression changed slightly. He knew that the chaotic energy had been suppressed by this crystal all these years. Now that he had taken this crystal away, would it speed up the spread of the chaotic energy, and thus release the chaotic beasts suppressed under the mountain range? Young man, don't think too much. Even if you don't take this inheritance crystal away, this mountain range will not be able to suppress the chaotic beasts for long. You were able to obtain the other part of the Master's inheritance, which proves that you are the Master's chosen successor. This starry sky will eventually welcome the destruction of the chaotic energy. When that time comes, you will have to fulfill the Master's dying wish. Break open this starry sky and find the person behind the scenes who framed the Master to take revenge. Suddenly, an old voice sounded, and Zhuowen could not help but look over. Behind him was a huge mountain range, and under this mountain range there was a crystal-clear lake. At this moment, the water in the middle of the lake was surging like boiling hot water. Then, he saw an axe handle appear from the water. This was only the axe handle, and there was no blade. Moreover, the front of the axe handle had traces of being broken. It was obvious that the axe handle had become like this because of a great battle. The moment Zhuowen saw this axe handle, he thought of Panga's heaven-splitting axe. Back then, the heaven-splitting axe had been destroyed by the strongest in the depths of the sky, and only this axe handle was left. However, even if it was only the axe handle, Zhuowen could still feel an ancient and powerful aura from it. It could be seen that when the heaven-splitting axe was still complete, it must have been very powerful. Weapon Spirit. Zhuowen looked at the axe handle that flew out of the lake and floated in front of him, and asked, "You can say that I am the weapon spirit of the heaven-splitting axe, but it is no longer complete. The reason why I am able to last until now is because I am still waiting for the destined person. Fortunately, I have been waiting." The axe handle once again spoke in an ancient voice, but there was an additional layer of sadness in the voice. "What is your name?" The axe handle asked. "My name is Zhuowen. I have a lot of questions, and I hope that you can help me solve them," Zhuowen said respectfully as he cupped his hands. This heaven-splitting axe was very powerful. When it had split open the chaos, it was extremely powerful. If it had not been for the mysterious expert in the depths of the sky, the heaven-splitting axe would not have been broken into such a state. I know what you want to ask. I think you should have seen most of what happened back then in this inheritance crystal. Moreover, since you are able to reach here, it means that you have obtained other Panga's inheritance that was lost outside. Otherwise, even if you have great magic power, you would not be able to enter here. The axe handle pondered for a while and continued, "Moreover, your guess is right. This mountain does suppress a part of the earth chaos beasts, and they are the real chaos beasts that were not destroyed back then. They are very powerful. Besides, there was also a small part of the chaos beasts that were scattered in other parts of the starry sky. However, those chaos beasts should have been suppressed by Master's descendants, the 12 grand sorcerers, and the 3 pure ones." Shuowen's eyes narrowed. He had heard about the chaos beasts from the Tai Ching a long time ago. It was said that the chaos beasts were the biggest natural enemy of this starry sky. Moreover, the 12 grand sorcerers had fallen because of the chaos beasts. It seemed that the chaos beasts were everywhere. Not only were there chaos beasts in this place, but there were also chaos beasts in other parts of the starry sky. He knew how terrifying the chaos beasts were. The chaos beasts in this mountain could not be released. Otherwise, it would be a great disaster. This was also why he was hesitant when he took the inheritance crystal. After all, if the chaos beasts left this place, he would be harming all the living things in this starry sky. Chapter 33, 95. Chaos Beast. Senior, how long can this place suppress the chaos beast? Zhuowen frowned and asked, "The time is not fixed, but according to my estimation, as long as there are no external forces, this place can hold on for at least 1,000 years. You have to improve yourself as much as possible to prevent any accidents." Zhuowen absorb the inheritance within this crystal first, and then complete it with the inheritance in your body. During this period, I will help you complete the inheritance. The ancient voice continued. Zhuowen absorb the inheritance in this crystal first, and then complete it with the inheritance in your body. Zhuowen nodded. He could see that the weapon spirit of the heaven-splitting axe had no ill intentions towards him. "Senior, I have another question. What exactly is the hand that killed Senior Pangu? You said before that I have to find the person behind this when I break through this galaxy. Is the person behind this the one who killed Senior Pangu?" Zhuowen could not help but ask. The handle of the axe trembled. His emotions fluctuated slightly as he said, "Yes. However, the person behind this is not from this galaxy. You will naturally understand after you break through this galaxy. It will not do you any good to know now. Furthermore, you have obtained Pangu's inheritance. Even if you do not find the person behind this, they will find you. When that time comes, you will be in danger. Are you still willing to accept the inheritance?" At this point, the axe handle's voice was slightly complicated and fluctuated violently. Zhuowen's gaze was somewhat complicated. He saw clearly from the image that even a powerful being like Pangu had fallen under that palm. The owner of that palm was suspected of taking advantage of Pangu's precarious situation. He had waited for Pangu to be exhausted by the chaos beast before he finally destroyed Pangu's land. However, this also meant that the owner of that palm was definitely not ordinary. "Senior, if the person behind this did not interfere, would Senior Pangu be able to break through this galaxy smoothly and leave this galaxy?" Zhuowen asked. He found many suspicious points, especially regarding the relationship between the person behind this and Pangu's land. He had heard Pangu mention the Pangu clan in the image before. The Pangu clan sounded like a branch clan. Could it be that the legendary Pangu's name was not Pangu? Axe Handle sighed and said, "So what if Master can break through this starry sky?" The difference between his personal strength and the power behind the mastermind was too great. Master's fate had already been decided long ago. It was just that he was unwilling and wanted to struggle for survival, but what he got in return was an even more painful death. "Senior Pangu, your real name isn't Pangu, is it? He should be a member of the Pangu clan, right?" Zhuowen raised his voice and questioned. "How did you know?" Axe Handle realized that he had let the cat out of the bag and immediately shut his mouth. Senior, I don't have to ask about the identity of the person behind the scenes. However, since I have obtained Pango's inheritance and can be considered Pango's successor, I must know more about Senior Pango's matters. The more detailed, the better. Otherwise, wouldn't the inheritance I obtained be unclear? Zhuowen said solemnly. Axe Handle was silent for a long time. In the end, he let out a long sigh and said, If you are willing to accept the complete inheritance of Pangu after the inheritance is over, I will tell you about Master. Good. I'm willing to accept the inheritance. Zhuowen said seriously. Are you sure? Even if you have to run for your life in the future, you won't regret it? Axe Handle asked in a deep voice. Zhuowen's heart trembled, but he still said firmly, I won't regret it. As long as you want to obtain power, you have to pay a corresponding price. There is no fruit in this world that can be reaped without sowing. Since I have accepted it, I will bear all the responsibility for it. Good, good, good. Master's choice of you was indeed not wrong. I'll help you complete the inheritance first. Once I'm done, I'll tell you everything I know about Master. Then, I will have to trouble you, Senior. Zhuowen cupped his hands and said respectfully, Well, let's leave this place first. The chaotic energy here was simply too unstable. I'm afraid it will affect you. Come with me. After saying that, Axe Handle tore through the air and left. Zhuowen followed closely behind him. Axe Handle brought Zhuowen to the top of the mountain range and stopped. Zhuowen, this is the Dragon's Head area of the mountain range. You should know that this mountain range was formed by Master's blood. It contains an extremely powerful energy. Although countless years have passed and the energy in the mountain range is constantly dissipating, there is still a huge amount of energy remaining. You can see for yourself that the energy in the latter half of the mountain range has been eroded by the chaotic beasts. If the chaotic beasts were given enough time, they would have eroded all the energy in the mountain range. That would be too easy for the chaotic beasts. At the same time, the chaotic beasts would become stronger and it would be easier for them to break the seal. Fortunately, you came now. If you came later, there would not be enough energy for you to complete the inheritance. Axe Handle said with a tone of relief. Zhuowen nodded and asked Axe Handle what he should do next. Axe Handle said, This is the Dragon's Head area. Sit here and place the inheritance crystal between your eyebrows. The crystal will enter your spiritual soul and spread throughout your body. It will resonate with the rest of the inheritance in your body. Hearing this, Zhuowen did not hesitate and sat on the Dragon's Head area of the mountain range. However, he secretly sent a voice transmission to the Purple Star Lord and Xiao He, who were recuperating in the Great World. He asked them to keep an eye on him at all times. If anything happened to him, they should immediately come out of the Great World to help him. Although he did not feel the slightest bit of malice from Axe Handle, after so many years of cultivation, his character had been honed to be very cautious and considerate. When Zhuowen sat on the Dragon's Head area, he could clearly feel that there was an extremely powerful energy fluctuation below. Moreover, this energy was of an extremely high level, much higher than the energy of the heavenly path. When he sat down, this energy flowed into his body bit by bit. A strong sense of comfort made Zhuowen moan involuntarily. Let's begin. Axe Handle said when he saw that Zhuowen was ready. Zhuowen nodded and placed the inheritance crystal between his eyebrows. Then, the crystal melted between his eyebrows and entered the depths of his spiritual soul. Then, a look of understanding appeared in his eyes. The moment the inheritance crystal entered his spiritual soul, it scattered into wisps of white light. These wisps of white light contained complex and profound information. They swept through his body like a flood. As this information was absorbed by him, Zhuowen's understanding of Panga's inheritance deepened. Chapter 33, 96. 8-star peak. Back then, when he obtained Panga's inheritance, it was incomplete. Now that he had completed the rest of the inheritance, his understanding of Panga's inheritance had reached a perfect level. There were many things that he didn't understand in the past, but now it was as if he had been enlightened. Not only did he gain a deeper understanding of the Panga's sacred body, but he also gained a deeper understanding of the 5 great mysteries he gained from the Panga banner. He had no doubt that after he received the inheritance, the power of the 5 profundities would undergo a qualitative change when he used them again. Not only that, but after receiving the new information, the Panga banner in Zhuowen's soul began to change. In the past, he had never been able to control the Panga banner. His control over it was also intermittent. Sometimes the Panga banner would act on its own when he was in a life-and-death situation. But now, after receiving the inheritance, he felt that he had complete control over the Panga banner. It was as if the Panga banner would be used according to his will. Whoosh! Zhuowen's divine consciousness moved, and the Panga banner in his divine soul suddenly flew out from between his eyebrows and floated above his head. The light banner fluttered in the wind, and a powerful aura overflowed, like a storm or a tsunami. It was extraordinary. It was the Panga banner. This kid's luck was indeed extraordinary. Not only did he obtain Panga's inheritance, but he also obtained the Panga banner. It's just that the Panga banner's spirit doesn't seem to be around anymore. Sigh. It seems that our old friend was defeated in that battle. The Taiji diagram has been completely destroyed and annihilated. Now that I can see the Panga banner, the heavens are kind to me, allowing me to see my old friend at the last moment. Sensing the Panga banner's aura, Axe Handle was startled at first. Then he sighed softly. He couldn't sense the Panga banner's artifact spirit's aura and knew that the Panga banner's artifact spirit had already dissipated. However, when the heaven-splitting axe's artifact spirit thought of his current situation, he couldn't help but smile bitterly. His situation wasn't much better. He was on the verge of collapse at any moment. Zhuowen, now feel the surging energy at the dragon's head. I will guide the energy of the mountain into your body. You just need to operate the Pangu's sacred body. By then, your Pangu's sacred body will be further improved, and the inheritance will be more perfect, Axe Handle said in a deep voice. Then I'll have to trouble you, Senior. Zhuowen nodded and said solemnly. As soon as Zhuowen finished speaking, he felt the energy below the mountain begin to boil and immediately rushed into his body. The strong feeling of comfort made Zhuowen involuntarily howl towards the sky. He activated his Pangu's sacred body and began to crazily absorb the surging energy under the mountain range, circulating it in his entire body. He was delighted to find that his Pangu's sacred body was becoming stronger, and the energy in his body was becoming more and more vigorous with the replenishment of this energy. The Pangu's sacred body, which had just been promoted, showed signs of evolving again under the baptism of such energy. This made Zhuowen ecstatic. He did not expect that the energy in the mountain range could make his Pangu's sacred body evolve again. It showed how high the quality of the energy in the mountain range was. Zhuowen's body emitted a crystal-clear light, making Zhuowen look like the most gorgeous jade. He did not look like a real person. Moreover, the crystal-clear light on Zhuowen's body became more and more vigorous, and his aura became more and more powerful. The entire mountain range seemed to have begun to tremble violently under Zhuowen's aura. Time passed slowly, and Zhuowen's aura became more and more powerful. Boom! Suddenly, an explosive sound burst out from Zhuowen's body. Then, his aura seemed to have undergone a transformation at this moment. It soared rapidly, and the surrounding air was stirred up by the powerful aura rushing straight to the sky. Zhuowen slowly opened his eyes, which shone with an unprecedented light. At this moment, he only felt that his body was full of inexhaustible energy. He was very excited and surprised because, at this moment, his body had evolved again. He had successfully advanced from the middle stage of the 8-star realm to the late stage of the 8-star realm. After Zhuowen had successfully advanced, he had transferred part of the power of the mountain range into the macro world. The original human body, Crepe Star Sovereign, and Xiao He, who had been healing in the macro world, immediately felt that this energy was extraordinary. They all went to absorb it. The benefits were obvious. Crepe Star Sovereign's injuries had healed quickly in a short time. Even his aura had become much more stable. Xiao He and the others also cried out in joy. They felt that the energy that had poured into the macro world was too refreshing. Their realms had been loosened. The original human body had only been absorbing for 15 minutes, and his original realm had been completely loosened. Then his aura skyrocketed. Crepe Star Sovereign, Xiao He, and the others immediately noticed the abnormality of the original human body. Holy **T. Zhuowen's human true body actually broke through just like that. Isn't this a little too fast? Blackie cried out. I was only half a step away from the peak of the Lord of Creation realm. Now, with such a powerful energy guiding me, I naturally broke through from the late stage to the peak of the Lord of Creation realm. When the conditions are right, success will naturally follow. The original human body smiled. His expression was natural, and he did not feel too surprised. Everyone quickly absorb it. There is still a lot of mountain range power. While my clone is accepting the inheritance, I will guide a small part of it into the macro world. This energy is very easy to disperse. Don't waste it, Zhuowen said in a low voice. Of course, after the original human body said this, he sat down cross-legged and closed his eyes to continue absorbing the mountain range power. He planned to break through to the Lord of Creation realm in one go. Xiao He cried out. He brought the death, sacrifice sword, and blood immortal sword and pounced into the mountain range power that had been guided over. Even Crepe Star Sovereign could not remain calm. He seized the opportunity to continuously absorb the mountain range power. This was energy that was many times more powerful than the energy of the heavenly Tao. It was very beneficial to them. Even Yin Wuxia and Ghost Plume had a share of the benefits. They were able to absorb this powerful energy that had not been easy to come by. Yin Wuxia and Ghost Plume smiled when they felt the benefits of the mountain range power. They looked at Zhuowen with eyes full of gratitude and admiration. Although they had been forced by Zhuowen to become his slaves, following Zhuowen, they had basically lived a very good life. Moreover, they could often enjoy the shared resources. This had caused their cultivation bases to rise steadily. Now that they had the opportunity to come into contact with such a vast amount of high-level energy, they felt that following Zhuowen was the wisest choice they had made in their lives. They were afraid that if Zhuowen wanted to drive them away, now, they would not be happy. The weapon spirit of the heaven-splitting axe naturally sensed Zhuowen's little action, but he did not say anything. After all, Zhuowen had only guided a small part of the mountain range power into the macro world. It did not have much impact on Zhuowen's acceptance and completion of the inheritance. 3 days later, the specks of starlight on the surface of the mountain range behind Zhuowen had completely dimmed. Zhuowen had completely absorbed the mountain range power. Zhuowen's Panga sacred body had made another breakthrough, evolving from the late stage of the 8-star realm to the peak of the 8-star realm. Everyone in the macro world had also benefited a lot. Among them, the original human body, had successfully broken through to the early stage of the Lord of Creation realm, and his strength had undergone a transformation. Crape Star Sovereign had not made a breakthrough, but he had reached the point of breaking through the Earth barrier. He only needed an opportunity to directly advance from the late stage of the Lord of Creation realm to the peak of the Lord of Creation realm.